Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with Arnaud Guillemard. If I'm saying that right? Let me hear you pronounce it.
With the American accent, Guillemard. With the French one, Guillemard.
Guillemard. Arnaud, not Arnaud.
Arnaud.
Guillemard.
A-U is O, D is silent.
Well, this is going to be fun. When I heard about your journey in tennis with Ivan Osoretz in detail, it was fun. We got to get that out. So let's start with your journey in tennis. How did you get connected with tennis?
Oh, well, I grew up in France. Actually, my mom's from Martinique in the French Caribbean. My dad's from Paris. They met in France when I was 2 years old. They took me to the Caribbean, to the island, and my parents played a little bit of tennis. I tried different sport, judo, like horse riding, different thing, and even like sailing because we were on an island, swimming, and then I just liked tennis. And a lot of people, I mean, in France, it's a second sport after soccer. So
yeah,
just had a lot of friends playing tennis, and then I just stuck with it.
So, but you spent most of your time on the island, not in France.
Originally I did. So my dad was, he had like he would rent some bungalows. And so that's what he was doing. And then my parents got divorced and my dad went back to France. So I was most of the time in the island because I would go to school all year long. But little by little, I was going more and more back to France to visit my dad. And then as your level increased, Martinique is a pretty small island. I think it's 50 miles at the longest and 20 or 30 at the widest. It's not a big population. So once you get to a certain level, you have to start playing outside of the island. So during holidays, during the summer break, I would spend a lot of time in France. And then when I was for high school, 14, I left to a tennis academy, a boarding school.
And where was that?
It's called Chambon-sur-Lignon. So it's in the center, in the mountains, a little bit like here in Wintergreen, like 3,000 some feet of elevation, and next to Lyon. And so that's where we were.
And boarding school. So you were there all 4 years for high school?
High school is 3 years in France. So I was there for 3 years.
And so from there, you ended up in the U.S.?
Yes. So from there, I got an agent for my last year. I already had a couple of friends from the academy that ended up go play college. And so that was something I had in the back of my head. And yes.
So you got a scholarship to come to the U.S.?
Correct. So I got an agent, and my English level, my language and art level was not great. I graduated with some kind of honors, but my language and art was low. My Spanish, my English was not great. I had my option where I didn't have a big budget. He gave me a couple of choice. One of them was Laredo Community College. I already had a friend from the academy that was there. And so he told me that would be a good option. I didn't need a high score. There was a scholarship already for housing. And so we went there, and so that's where I ended up. And at the beginning, when he sold it to me, it was like, it's going to be a great place. You're going to learn English. You're going to learn Spanish. And
with junior college, I spent so many years in Florida. At one time, Florida had 32 men's teams, junior college men's teams. It was down to 0. Now it's back up to 2. What years were you playing junior college tennis?
2006. That's when I got to the U.S.
So
2006.
They've been very successful at school. Right?
Yes. So the year I got there, so the year before I got there, they were already national champion. So they were playing Tyler Junior College. That was the main rival. So and then the year I got there, we also won the national champion also.
Wow. With I spent, as you know, 10 years at Tyler Junior College throughout the 1980s. I believe it was 4 years where I was a tournament director of the men's tournament, not the women's, but the men's. and the level of play was very high. With back in the 80s, pre-internet, Tyler Junior College, the abbreviation was TJC.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a big time school would be USC, University of Southern Cal. Some people would want me to say University of South Carolina, but back then, South Carolina wasn't as nearly strong as they are now, but it was USC. And I used to say kids didn't know whether they were coming to TJC or USC. And quite often, there would be some really, really good players in junior college that were easily played at the level of the players at, say, the Division I level.
Yeah, we had, I want to say, our number one player was from Spain. He would always say, I never lost to Almagro. He had split set with Nadal. Great player. And he ended up playing NAIA, won national title in NAIA. I think our number 2 player transferred to Baylor. So yeah, the team was strong. I was grinding to try to play 6.
No, I remember coaching a Brazilian, Renato Figueiredo. Unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago. So he lost junior college. The tournament was flighted, so all the number 1s would play the number 1s and number 2s all the way down. And he lost to a Swedish guy. And he said the guy was so good. He never missed. And it was Michael Pernfors, who won the junior college national twice. And then he went to the NCAA, and he won that twice. He went to the University of Georgia. I think it was Seminole Junior College, one of the Florida schools way back when. We had Ricardo Acioli on as a guest. He played at Tyler Junior College. It was amazing. The term sleeper or ringer like this. But every team was pretty much all international players.
Same with us. There was like this mutual language that we would speak, a mix of French, Spanish, and the only thing FIFA, that video game of soccer, was kind of like where we would all connect and like have this language where we could
a mix
talk with each other. But if not, it's tough. When I first got there to Laredo, my English was, I had to take remedial classes for English. So you pass some tests, and so I was able to like advance in my degree in some subject like math and first aid and some elective classes. But in English, you have to take remedial classes until you get to the level like where you can take classes that count for it. And that takes about 6 months usually. So
when I was at Tyler Junior College, I was there during the time of 3 coaches. So between the first and the second and the third, I remember for the second and third, I ran the team, both teams, for a semester. And there was just one American, Scott Stewart, a great competitor from Texas. But the rest of the players were from, I used to call it the Immigration Center. But it was the international flavor. It was great to meet people from all over the world. Christopher Swantonson, somebody coach who played at Stetson. He's a banker in Sweden. He's from Sweden. And one of the reasons, his mother told me, one of the reasons he got the job is when he was interviewed, he said during his 4 years at Stetson, he had teammates from, say, like 11 countries. And I think that's great. I think that in the U.S., we just have to do a better job developing players. I often hear that we shouldn't have foreign players here, but I would say, where would we be in the U.S. if we didn't have all the foreign players come in? And so many of them, like yourself, they end up staying here and contributing to American tennis. So tell us your story with you were in college, but then you became the roughneck called Frenchie, driving a Prius. But tell us a little bit more about the tennis, and then tell us that you took a little side turn.
Yeah, first there's a funny story about Laredo. So Laredo Community College, the campus is on the border. So like you see when you get there, you can see the Mexican flag and the U.S. flag, and they kind of compete to have the biggest flag. It's there. So the Mexican is a little bit bigger, barely flies. That's how big it is. It's really heavy, but you can throw rocks on the other side of the river. You can see on the Google map, you can see the courts and then the river next to it. And I just remember getting there. I was probably the first one from the team I was, and the campus is based on an old fort from the army. So the athletic house and dorms, or I think it's a hospital, a house built in the early 1900s. And so everything, it's all wood, it crackles. And I just remember coming up and being the only one in this house and just going to bed. And at 2 a.m, this loud noise just going, like coming from not far from where I was. And it was a train. It sounded like a tornado siren. I didn't know where to go. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Right. And then anyway, the next day come back, I wake up and then I just go, I walk around and somebody like on a 4-wheeler just comes. I just see dust and like gets really fast, comes to me, and somebody in a uniform and asks me in English, what am I doing? And I had no clue who that was. And I'm trying to like, with the little bit of English, I'm trying to explain that I'm a student and it's a border patrol. It's a border patrol because you have tons of them down on the border. And so, but I think they figured it out pretty quick. And so, but yeah, that was at Laredo Community College. So, but so I only spent 1 year. I did 1 year, I played for the team. And then after doing a year, I mean, I was pretty immature. I was spending quite a bit of money, partying. And so my mom told me, education is free in France. You need to come back to France. It's going to be a lot cheaper. We can't sustain this lifestyle. And I had a girlfriend. I was madly in love, like a French guy. And so I was like, no, I can't go back. I really want to stay.
You're what, 19, 20 years old?
I was 19. I was about to be 20. I was 19. I was about to be 20. And so after talking to my girlfriend, my wife now, we were like, so what do we do? And we had this plan of, it was like, okay, well, let's get married and then we can start our life pretty much. And so that's what we did. So I got there at 18. I turned 19 after a couple of months. And then before I turned 20, I got married. And then I got married a year later. The next December, my daughter was born, Morgan. So it was kind of like a crazy story.
With the tennis, was there structure through the coach, and was it pretty loosey-goosey?
No, there was some structure, although like my English level was not that good. So sometimes it was like I was just doing what the other guy was doing, and that wasn't always what the coach was asking.
Yeah.
But there was, I mean, there was some structure, and now I know the coach personally, and he's a great guy.
Is he still there?
No, actually, after COVID killed the athletics for that.
Oh, it's so sad.
Laredo College, yeah.
No, that's happened. It happened in other places. Crazy. It's too bad.
Yeah. So after my daughter was born, started working. I was giving some tennis lesson, and then one of the person I was teaching tennis own some duty-free stores. So they sell liquor, tobacco, and fragrances basically with no tax. And the cost for those is also cheaper. And a lot of those products between liquor and fragrances are French. So when I was teaching his kid and a little bit his family, it was like, you're French, you speak French, you need to work for me. You can really help me talk to this French guy over there, so we can get better deal on what we buy. And I was like, okay. So I ended up working in like selling on the store perfume and fragrances, maybe a couple of months. And then he brought me in the back in the offices. And then I just started working, contacting those, as a vendor, contacting those firm. I mean, some of them are LVMH, like there's some big brand of perfume, and just out of nowhere, just sending email, a little bit, how would you say that? Like a little bit ignorant of how things work. And some people would get back to me, and we did get some better deal on perfume and things like that. I remember.
So you're basically cold calling because you can speak French.
Yeah, basically.
Then you're
Basically,
a
yeah.
young guy.
Yeah, and when we would end up talking, and they were like, they would find out that I'm 20 or 21 years old. They'd be like, "What is this guy doing?"
Welcome to
So
America.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it took me twice. We flew in that person's private jet to Florida for a trade show, and like on those nice boat, and it was just like, I mean, it was, yeah, it was
You have great
different.
presence. So how tall are you?
6'4".
6'4". That
6'4".
helps. That helps. Hey, I've always been told that um, you have a better chance of getting the job if you're over 6'2". But if you have presence, plus you got the smile, and that you definitely were an out of town expert. They used to say, maybe you were an out of town expert without the slideshow, but it used to be the definition of an expert is someone from out of town with a slideshow. So, that's where in the US of A, used to say that if you have a foreign accent, you can get a job teaching tennis much, much easier. And I've traveled enough where I've been out of town, and I'm the guy with a foreign accent. So then how did you get into the
oil field?
The oil field. Of course, you were in Texas, so.
Well, I mean, so my wife, so in Laredo, in Texas and in Laredo, oil field has a strong presence. So there's a lot of people. My wife's mom worked for an oil field company. Her dad worked for an oil field company. Uncles and so on, and so they had. My brother-in-law worked for one too, and they had connections, and so there was an opportunity at one point, because the oil field goes up and then it goes back down and up, and so when it goes up, they do a lot of new hiring, and so they were saying, we just need to wait for a wave of hiring, and then we'll let you know. And at the time, it was just gonna be, working for this person was, it was nice and it was a good experience, and I'm thankful, but it was a grind. I mean, I wasn't getting paid a lot. I had been working there, I think, a year and a half. I hadn't had a week of vacation. And so
when you were in sales at first, it was a bit commission based?
No.
Okay.
It was per hour. I mean, it was kind of exploiting me in a sense. Like, and so after working, when I got that job in the oil field has different schedule, but I was on a 7-day on, 7-day off. And so after my first 7 day, I already had a week of vacation. And I was like, oh, awesome.
So tell us what you did. I mean, you had to start at the bottom and work your way up, or I mean, what jobs did you do?
So it's called floor hand. That's the technical term for it. Now, roughneck is the term that they use for anyone that work pretty much on an oil rig, that does the labor. But within there's a couple of positions. The bottom one is floor hand, and there's motorman, derrickman, which work in heights, and then the driller, which runs the machine and give pretty much the direction. So I started floor hand, and I mean, it was different. It was different because I had only been in the US for maybe 2.5 years. So there was a whole new terminology I had to learn as far as like the tools. So, when we would have to work on a machine and they say, go bring me a ball peen hammer, I was in shape. So I would just run to the toolbox, which is, I don't know, 100 yard, go in there, open it, and anything that looked like a hammer, I would bring it. So I come back with like 6 hammers, and then they just grab the one they need, and then I run back and put it back. And then same thing with, I don't know, a crescent wrench. If it has the word, I just bring any wrench. But yeah, so you work your way up. I mean, we had to pretty much drilling, they have tubes, drilling pipes of 30 foot, and they just tie them together, and then they pump fluid into it, and they make it rotate, and they go into the ground. And so as a floor hand, you just do all the labor, connecting the pipe and connecting them, pushing them.
So you went from being a tennis kid who was on the island, around the beach, going back and forth to Paris on holidays and in the summer, hitting tennis balls, and now you're getting your hands dirty. You're in the real world.
Yeah, I think my parents were scratching their head, like, and not even my wife's family looking at me there. I think some of them were like, "This guy's gonna get killed out there," because there is a little bit of a danger to it if if you're not careful, you're working with high pressure, you're working with heavy equipment. So you do have to be careful. You do have to be careful, but
Well, when an international player comes to the U.S., do they really know where they're going? Do you know what's the difference between? Certainly, someone would know the difference between like L.A. and Laredo, but U.S. is a big place.
no, I totally agree with that. When they told me, they sold me Laredo as, oh, you're gonna be next to the border, you learn English and Spanish, and so I was like, when I first went, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go play, I'm gonna get a degree, I'll learn a different language. Oh, even better, I'll learn 2 different languages now. I'll go back, I'll be a businessman. That was my plan at 17, and then when I got to Laredo, I was like, oh, okay. But like, there's not one tree there. It's all dust.
No, I told many young tennis players from overseas, yeah, I've been to the U.S. and they say, oh, where have you been? And they just, I went to this small college town. We were in this small conference. But going back, what do you remember? What some of the options that you had? Because what you did was very common. Is that a lot of foreign players who have different options, they end up going where they know someone. It's just like when an immigrant comes over. Certainly they connect generally with a close family member. So if your friend wasn't there, if your friend had been in another place, so it was just based on that, right?
A lot, yes, a lot.
Yeah.
A lot had to do with it. I mean, I think it's comforting to know that when you're gonna get there, there is someone that's already been there, and that's going to be there. So, you're not gonna be alone.
Just in one of our classroom sessions, we were talking about, because a young girl's here who she's really improved. It's a fun story. She's just really, her and her dad initially worked off our videotape, so we didn't really work with her in person at first. So we're talking college tennis, and people say, okay, where would you like to go play? And there's just so much to it. College placement with many teams have had, like say at Minnesota at one point, had 6 players from Sweden. Auburn at one time in the starting lineup had 6 players from South Africa. And I remember at Tyler Junior College, there was 4 players from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
4 of the top 6 players are from Brazil. Because how it works is the coach, I just know firsthand at Tyler Junior College, the coach would call, say, a young player in from Brazil and say, hey, do you have any friends who want to come here? And they go, yeah, I've got a couple of friends who want to come here. And then the coach would sneak in, are they a little better than you? Or if they didn't even ask that, and the coach goes, yeah, I got a friend. Well, when you get to play, how's it go? He goes, oh, I don't take sets from this guy. And the coach is thinking, well, if you're number 3 on our team and we get your buddy in, now you're going to be number 4. You would think it'd be much more sophisticated, but it's not.
No, yeah, a lot of the recruiting is actually, I think, is done that way for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Actually, the big commercial academies, you can look it up online. Say, Mortagola's place in France or Nadal in Spain. They have people on staff that are working full time to place them in schools in the U.S. But it's not a prestigious list of schools that those academies are. That's not where they're. And it's usually they also have a very small number of graduating students because people just there's not a lot of there's so much turnover within an enrollment at an academy.
Yeah, I mean, me at 17 or 18 in France, I don't know how many university I knew. Maybe UCLA, maybe Harvard. That was it, or something like that. But some of the big school, I had no clue.
No, in movies you always hear the H-bomb Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
I always tease people, say, where did Batman go to college? He went to Princeton. But no, I mean, a lot of people, I know Roger Federer recently spoke at Dartmouth, but that's all, around outside of the U.S., they just know Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, correct.
Of course, then when you think of, people like in years gone by, like an Arthur Ashe or Jimmy Connors, through tennis, you'll hear, oh, they played at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, how do you get your hands dirty? Covered in dirt every day, covered in oil?
I mean, there is days better than other, but yeah, for sure, there is time where every time you unscrew those pipe, there is oil that comes out or drilling fluid, and it gets on you, and you do it over and over, and you just get dirtier and dirtier, and or there's some time where they call it wet connection, where you just pop it and it like burst out, and yeah, at that point, you're like, take off your glasses, you look like a raccoon because you have it everywhere, dripping off your thing. The guy with more experience are laughing, and then you got to spend the rest of the day like that, pretty much. With experience, you learn how to do the job cleaner, staying cleaner,
Yeah.
or go change, because you're like, how am I gonna work 12 hours in sometime 100-degree weather covered in oil? But at the beginning, you don't know any better. You just do.
Survive.
Yeah, pretty much.
What about the level of danger? Being a roughneck. What a name.
The level of danger, I mean, it's there. There are accidents for sure. Personally, I never really got hurt, bruise here or things like that. I've seen maybe chain busts, but I've never been hurt. I've never been next to someone that got really hurt. But for sure, I know that on the same drilling rig, let's say I go on days off and then come back and somebody you know, got hit by something and got a broken bone. And
It certainly helped to be a big, strong athlete, right? To do the type of work.
it does help to be in shape. Yes, it does help to be in shape. Uh, just be quick sometime, and just be able to go up, down the stairs, and
Uh, Talking to the coach from Baylor University, Joey Scrivano, he was looking at a Canadian gal that I've spent time working with her. She traveled to work with me, but the significance is I've worked with her coach. So he's called me up, and I said, well, the first thing I say about that kid is that she worked at McDonald's. And he quickly said, I like that. I'm telling tennis parents all the time is that if a kid in tennis gets a job in tennis, it's really not a job. If they're at the club, the country club, and they're familiar with tennis, they play a fair level, and they're nice with the kids. Everybody knows them, but it's really the blind leading the blind. And they're that expression, coming back to it, is they're not getting their hands dirty. Like a kid at McDonald's is, okay, you got to take the garbage out. Okay, grab that mop. Okay, now you're making French fries. Got to wear a uniform. And years and years ago, of course, I'm going to be 70 if I can make it a few more months. And with even wealthy kids back in the day, say in the 60s, if you were 16, you had to have a job. It wasn't cool if you didn't have one. I think that's one bad thing. I know we talked about so many things around tournaments, is that like tennis players, they don't really, and junior tennis players, it's not like they have, pros, I guess, too. They don't have an off season. They can play different sports. So how long did you do that? And then how'd you circle back into where you are now?
So I did that for 8 years.
Wow.
8 years, yeah. I worked for 2 years. 2 years in South Texas, and then there was an opportunity to go work. 2 years, 2.5 years. An opportunity to go work in Pennsylvania. They had found this new shale. Some people from the management of the company changed company. With that company going, they were going to pay more money, and so little by little they were grabbing people from their old company, which was where I was. And then it was my turn. So I went over there, worked in Pennsylvania, and so it was more, they paid you more. The schedule was a little bit better because I started 7 days on, 7 days off. Then I went to 8 days on, 4 days off. And then all those days when you're working, so you drive to the platform, you work, it's 12 hours of work plus a 30 minutes safety meeting beforehand. So 12 and a half hours. So when you get off after a long day, you shower, you eat, you go to sleep, and then you wake up. And they have sleeping quarters there on site. Sometimes if you're lucky, you're not too far from the house, you can drive here and there, but you only have 11 and a half hours off. So you have to be quick. But anyway, so after 2.5 years working in South Texas, there was an opportunity to work in Pennsylvania, more money, 2 days, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. They would fly you over there. They would house you, feed you, and so I did that, and I stayed in Pennsylvania for 3 years. And it was working nights, northern Pennsylvania next. So you would fly in Elmira, New York, and then just go south a little bit. And so you were, I mean, it was cold there.
Yeah, yeah.
It was cold, but I mean, it was good. It was good. We were also treated better. We were treated better than in South Texas, as far as not just the food and all that, but the working conditions were better. Let's say there is an oil spill, so they be careful. They work at a slower pace. Because in South Texas, it's like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Sometimes they'll try to take shortcut, because I mean, an oil rig costs money. So it's like the quicker you can finish your drill and move on to the next one, the better.
Your story reminds me of somebody I spent a lot of time with, actually, best man at my wedding, an Englishman, Steve Squire. And he came over. He actually he won a tournament that Newcomb's was hosting in England, and because of that, he went to teach at Newcomb's in the summer. No, I got that backwards. He was from England. It was at Newcomb's. He won a tournament to get to be a guest or be a student at Newcomb's. That's how it was. He won something in England to end up at Nukes, and then when he was at Nukes back in the day, coaches would have a tournament. So he went to it was a junior college. He went to the junior college. He won the tournament, and I ended up connecting with him. We played lots of tennis together. But when he was a foreigner, but he could speak English, so it was a little bit easier for him. But he wasn't married. He didn't have a work permit. But he went to a construction site because he wasn't so interested in going to class. And he asked the foreman if he could work, and the foreman said, "Well, I can't hire you. You don't have any papers." He said, "Just let me work for 1 day for free." And he goes, "You'll hire me." And he did. The way we said it, he goes, "I can outwork 3 of you. I'll do the work of 3 of your guys." That's another story about his whole life. But I remember telling him, I said, "Well, you didn't go to class." He goes, No, I didn't realize that you had to go to class." He goes, "I just went to practice." And, so then he flunked out, and you're ineligible. But it's amazing when 18, 19-year-olds come over that they have no idea what they're getting into. For me, I'm proud of the fact that, I went to college for a year, began my second year. I just came up with this idea, okay, I'm going to later go back to school, but I'm going to pursue a career in tennis. That's a longer story, but so I got on an airplane. I went to Florida. Plane landed. I didn't know one person. I had $1,100 in my pocket. It's like, okay, I've got to try to make a way in tennis. But that's when, you at least when you come over in your situation, you were connected with a friend, connected with a school. So then, how did you get off or get out of the oil industry and get back in tennis?
Well, so after I worked 3 years in Pennsylvania, my son was about to be born, and so I asked to be transferred back, and I came back to South Texas, and I wasn't too far from the house. So at that time, I was able to sometime go home during my 2 weeks, because when you have kids, it can be tough a little bit. Like, you miss a lot, because when you're at the rig, there is no, can I get the day off?
So in your 7 days on, you're 24 hours.
Correct. Or 12 hours,
but there.
Yes, and you can't, Christmas, they're working, New Year's, they're working. I mean, it doesn't, it's luck whether you have it off or not. So you do miss a lot. And so after my 8 years, actually things were slowing down. I can't remember the year exactly. 2006, maybe like around 2014, things were slowing down. And so they say rig gets stacked. So they don't contract rigs. Rig goes to the yard. We're working at the yard a little bit, and little by little, people start getting laid off. But that's common in the oil field. It's pretty common. And so they get laid off, and then you kind of get unemployment, and then you wait to be called back. And so that's what happened to me. I was But in that time, we had moved from Laredo to San Antonio. So I had been in San Antonio for maybe 2 years, maybe, and so I had been taking some online classes too while working. So during my time off, I was taking those classes because I always had a goal to still finish college. I don't think I wanted to work in the oil and gas for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It was perfect at the time. I mean, looking back, especially, I was young, I was fit, but when you see those older persons still doing it, I mean, it's tough. Physically, it's tough. They have to find
The
ways.
expression is a hard life.
Correct.
With construction, when people get laid off, the people get rehired. Do they have what we would say connections to get back? They know someone, right?
I mean, that's how I got hired to begin with. So much of it is connection, and then it's pretty much, it's your supervisor. It starts with him, so he gets a job, and then he pretty much has his little crew. And sometimes it can be pretty big, but he has a couple of foremen, and then those foremen have, a couple of drillers, and then the drillers have those hands, and that's how it goes.
Developing character. I tell tennis parents, tennis kids, the coaches of kids, I think everybody should work for tips. Just ask, what type of jobs have you had? My grandfather, Mikhail, funny guy. I worked at a cemetery. Mostly you're mowing lawns, painting fences, but occasionally if the backhoe couldn't get into a certain place, you'd be digging a grave. But my grandfather used to tell people, my grandson has a job, people are dying to get in. And he said he does a job where thousands of people work underneath him. But I work construction, and it was really, I felt so bad. I just had to get on my bicycle, ride from my parents' house. And my father knew everybody in the asphalt business. His last job he worked for the asphalt industry, but he was a civil engineer. So I was told, go to the construction site and just ask for like Mr. Jones. So I wait in line, and there's all these older men with a lunch pail, and they're waiting for work. And I said, I'd like to speak to Mr. Jones, and they sent me to Mr. Jones. And all I had to say was, I'm Jim Smith's son. That's all I had to say. And he said, all right, son, go in there, and they'll give you a helmet and a flag. So I was a flagman. So I put this helmet on, this construction helmet, and this is all the training I needed. It's very much like being a tennis teacher, no orientation. So I'm out on the road. It's the most boring job ever, flagging traffic. The clock just goes backwards. So I used to put my hand out to stop traffic, and I was waving with the flag. So this engineer stops, and he goes, son, you stop them with the flag, and you wave them with their hand. Famous author, Rita Mae Brown, she actually at one time was married to Martina Navratilova. My mother became really good friends with her because in this town I lived in, it's very picturesque. And my mother sold a home, a second, third home to Rita Mae Brown. Married to Navratilova at one time. So I didn't know her at that time, but it was just this big red Rolls Royce would go by. And one thing I always did is I always stopped the really fancy cars would come, and I'd put the red flag up, and then I would, the kid who was driving the Volkswagen, I'd let them through. But I mean, I had older brothers who worked construction, and I know that I told all the guys, when we would stop, they would always say, hey, because I got along really well with the guys, and they say, hey, let's go, I enjoy us to have a beer. And I remember just telling them, I got another job. I got to go to my second job. And I get on my bike, and I was not going to tell those construction workers, I'm going to go hit tennis balls. But I can remember a couple of them, they would work, drink, they'd sleep on the flat, they'd sleep on a truck, and those guys were tough. So a hard life. So then tell us, it was something that your wife wrote a book, and that had something to do with the change in your...
So 8 years working there, I was using some of the money we were using to pay for her degree. So she was going to school. She went to Texas A&M in Laredo. She got her degree. When we moved to San Antonio, she started working for a company, and so she got some experience into book publishing. And then she published a couple of books herself, and there was They call that a fad, right? When something just becomes very popular for a short amount of time. And so she had she published a couple of adult coloring books, and
Did
she
really well.
hmm yeah, she had one she had one that was number one Amazon bestseller for a little bit. I mean, it was during Christmas time, so it was pretty helpful. I mean, Amazon is the one. I mean, in their system, so you just send them a file, and then they print the book as people buy it. So it's she wasn't going to a publishing company. Amazon's the one that does really well when you do that. But for us, she didn't have. It was just a one person, so she didn't have to deal with stock and so on. But so yeah, that helped. That helped financially. And so at that time, that was exactly at the same time I had got laid off. So when they called me to go back, I was like, well, I'm gonna go back to school. So I'm gonna go back to school. So at that time, I started teaching a lot more tennis. Throughout the year I was in the whole field, I would still sometimes teach tennis during my time off, whether I already had a kid, two kids, so whether it was with the kid or a couple of people that needed help. So I was doing that. And then when I went back to school, that's I started doing that a little bit more, like every day. So it was I go to school in the morning and then I get off and then I teach kids
You went
after
to school
school.
in San Antonio.
I went to UTSA, University of Texas at San Antonio. So I did an exercise science degree. Uh, and so I already had about 2.5 years. So it took me about 2 years maybe to finish, but it was a right time for me. I mean, when I remember when I first came to the US, first the language was a barrier. It was so hard. Even writing an essay would take me so long. And then I was also very immature. So when I went back at 29 or 30 years old, I was actually laughing at the teacher's joke. I was just way more interested, and I could see the young kid that were 20 years old that were just totally disinterested in the subject, and me, I was just more
Well,
mature.
yeah, I ran this program where you get a 2-year degree, and many people ask me, well, have you ever thought about doing that again because it's really needed? And I said, well, most of the students, I should say a large percentage of the students, yeah, they were studying tennis, but their heart wasn't really in it. They didn't really they that young an age, they really didn't know what they wanted to do. I think that years ago, when the Swedes, the Germans, the South Africans, after high school, they were committed to the government for 2 years. They're committed to serve the country in one capacity or the other, and that really helped so much. I know during your visit here, you spent time with Spencer Johnson,
Hmm.
and I was all for him going on a mission, which was it's related, or it is, with the Latter Day Saints, the Mormon Church. But it's such a great way for people to mature. Not many 18-year-olds are ready, and I think that's a good reason for people to play college tennis, especially the boys, because when they become part of a team, it's like an extended family. Uh, and I do tell parents all the time, in one way, kids are more accelerated, but I say this, and I've been saying this for a long time, so maybe my numbers are off, but I tell parents it's not a negative, but where um, you were when you were 18, your child will have to be 28 to be at that same level of maturity. It's just times have changed because things are much easier. The boomerang kid is the kid who goes to college and goes back home. I mean, and there's so many factors. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day. What's a typical rent in Dallas? It was just a pro that we've trained who may end up going to Dallas. What's it cost to rent like a 3-bedroom apartment? And it's like, wow.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's I do think we make the mistake of saying that it's easier for young people today, but actually years ago, the American model, we had such a large and prosperous middle class, as you'd have a good job for 30 years, you get a 30-year mortgage, and then you have a pension. And the pensions that young people are getting now, if they're getting one at all, it's not there. It's just so many things. With the coloring book, this is a project that I remember having one intern that was just assigned to get this coloring book done. People tell me now, well, people don't use crayons. I would think it's pretty therapeutic for people to use crayons. But I think that coloring book should be all right. We could take the GreatBase curriculum, which is a system of systems, and you could even have something in each corner. One little paragraph could be for the parents. Another paragraph could be on just the game, the history of the game and such, the beauty of the game. There could be something on the technical side, and then something for the child. So it could be, you could hit the four corners with small paragraph, but then it's okay. Let's color a tennis court. Let's color a racket. You see how in instructional books they'll turn the bottom side of the racket and teach that's the stop sign and the numbers. And you could actually have young kids learn the system through a coloring book. That's something that I would still like to see be accomplished. What a great way for early childhood development classes that, here's a coloring book. I actually had a woman work for me. I remember it was with Tennis Corporation of America. And I hired two people, someone who had been laid off and was a recreational player. And not, he lost a lot of weight and he got fit. And the other was a woman who was really a Pied Piper. And she did it, but it wasn't a coloring book. I mean, she would have just a photocopy of here's the tennis court, bring this back the next time. I shared that idea with her and she just got it done. But tell us a little bit more about that, the coloring book. Just is that something she always had in the back of her mind? How did that idea come to reality?
It was just the research. It was just the research that she saw that there was a market for it, and she happened to kind of see it early. She was one of the first one. Now the market is that doesn't exist. Like, she doesn't do that anymore. The market, just by the time the big publishing company caught up to it and published. So because at one point it was hard to find the books, so people would find them on Amazon.
Okay, so it's like the corner hardware store has been taken over by Home Depot.
Yes.
Same scenario.
Yes, and so they started hiring, artists, famous artists, and then you just had, at one point it was saturated. There was some everywhere, and then it died a little bit, or it did die.
So then, upon finishing your degree, take us from there.
So yeah, I finished. I graduated, maybe 33 years old when I finished my degree. I had good grade too. I had very good grade. My goal, what I was looking at while I was doing exercise science was to enter occupational therapy in a program. Now the problem was I had already established. I had already owned a home in San Antonio. I had my two kids in school. My wife was working, and so I only applied to one school in San Antonio. I was like, I'm not going anywhere, and it's very competitive. And with me having the kids, with me working, I didn't have a whole lot of shadowing or experience. So it was only my grade speaking for it. And I didn't get in the first year. So my goal was just gonna do a lot of shadowing and reapply the following year. But in between, there was a position that opened in tennis, because the whole time I had been teaching tennis, and there was a position for assistant tennis coordinator for one of the big school district in San Antonio. So in San Antonio, the way the high schools have a tennis center. So there is about four large tennis center in the city. Two of them for the same district, and then there is one for the one I work at.
I've been fortunate enough, along with Ivan Oserez, just recently we went and conducted a workshop called Blossom.
Mm-hmm.
Describe that. It's like an Olympic Village. It's
so at first it's called Blossom, which is I like the name. It's a great name, but because it's in the neighborhood called Blossom, so that's why that's the name. and so it's the Blossom Athletic Center. You got a huge gym where they'll do basketball game, volleyball game, school performance. Uh, I don't think they do. Sometimes small graduation, even art project, concert. Uh, and then there's some athletic offices that overview a large football field. There is a little bit behind. There are some baseball field. There's a couple of
Big, huge football stadium with AstroTurf and
yeah, the athletic offices overview the huge football stadium, and then behind are one or two baseball field. There's about another two soccer field, and then there's two natatorium, and one of them that's brand new. San Antonio has been well known with their swimmer, so they have good swimming program.
yeah, no,
So one of the natatorium is Josh Davis, who was a Olympic medalist.
no, I went for a walk around Blossom and I saw it's amazing. But when I
And then
went
the
when I,
tennis
but
center.
when I went there, I thought I was going to a public park, but it's a high school. It's not a public park, or it's not city or county. It's high school.
Correct. It's owned
Yeah.
by the school district. So, I mean, it's funded through bond, but it's not owned by the city. And then there is 18 tennis courts. And then with the district, it's a large district. The school district, I mean, it has over 60,000 students, I think. So it's 50 some elementary school, 14 middle school. Each middle school has 4 tennis courts. 7 high school. Each high school has 6 tennis courts, and then the Blossom Tennis Center, which has 18. So overall, I think we have right at 100 tennis courts that we kind of take care of, manage, whether it's nets, resurfacing, and we're looking to trying to add. We hope if we can, because the Blossom is always packed. So we're trying to see if we can ways to. There's another athletic center somewhere else for the district, maybe if there is room to fit a few more courts there one day.
I like the line. Use it quite often with kids. Blossom where you're planted. I mean, this is where you're from. Don't look at the other side of the fence. The grass is not greener on the other side. Make it happen right where you are.
Grow like a flower, not like a weed.
There you go. There you go. With, so tell us about high school tennis. That's a big part of my days in tennis. Where in the '80s, when I was in Tyler, Texas, actually Clayton Stanley. I know we're going to interview Clayton on his 50th birthday coming up in October. That's a story in itself with his father, the late David Stanley. And it was great. He came out and he spoke to the parents and the players, the coaches at your place. With high school tennis, it was a big deal back in the day. Everybody played. I remember coaching kids at, they've changed the name recently, but Robert E. Lee High School. Every girl, it wasn't quite as deep on the boys' side, but every girl, at the worst, they were top 20 in Texas.
Well, I didn't even know, and that's where my daughter goes to school there. She goes to Lee High School.
But this was in Tyler.
Okay.
When I was in the '80s, Churchill was San Antonio. John Peterson was the coach at one time. Then he went to Tyler Junior College. But I know they were very strong. But there was all the way up to 5A. And but yeah, Tyler. They had mixed doubles. They dropped it. They brought it back. But every last period, the entire team, that was their PE class, and the whole tennis team would meet throughout the whole year. And generally, these 5A schools had someone who at least had a tennis background, which was very unusual. And so they had a team practice every day. Then then they would go off to their private coaches. But with that, I'm going to think that they had a fall season and a spring season. One was for the team and one was for individual. I'm going to guess the spring was individual. And we had many kids win state championships, not only just 5A, but also even from 3A, 2A, all the way down. But then the Catholic schools had a state championship. But I remember one year a young kid from El Paso won, and we were like, who is this? But didn't know that El Paso was part of the Southwest Tennis Conference, or a tennis section. It's like, who's this kid from El Paso? We've never heard of him. But he was a resident of obviously the state of Texas, but his tennis section was the Southwest. So how long have you been at Blossom?
At least 5 years. It might
Yeah.
be almost 6 or almost 7, something like that.
Well, my connection too with Blossom, if we talk about Dave Watts, he's the coach of the NAIA, Our Lady of the Lake, men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So they train at Blossom, or they practice their home matches. You have a bunch of juniors.
Yeah, we have over 300 players in the program.
Yeah.
So
I know you and your family, Dave. You came to work with me in Florida, and I guess maybe twice in Florida, and now that I've been to Texas, you've been up here. You also run tournaments.
I do. It's a little bit recent. It's since COVID. So now I do that a little on the weekend mostly. I learned how to run tournaments at Blossom because we run school tournaments. So we probably run at least 10 tournaments a year for school, whether it's for middle school, whether it's for our high school, to prepare for the season. Now we have the district tournament for both the fall, the spring. Now we run the regional, we run the state tournament. So I learned doing that. That was part of my job. And then, so on the weekend also able to run USTA tournament. And so over COVID, the Texas section changed a little bit the way they run their tournament.
Yeah.
It used to be they had challenger, champ, super champ. You had one tournament a month. So there was one challenger a month, one champ a month, one super champ a month. And people, the challenger would have 200-300 participants. You can only play, sometimes they had a couple of actually they did have a couple of them, but you could only play one. And you had to get so many points to be able to be a champ, and same thing to be a super champ. It was, everybody else had a different system except for Texas.
Yeah, a few thoughts on that. Then it was called ZATS.
ZATS is the name for challenger, but yes, ZATS.
With football in Texas. I love Texans. They think it's the greatest place in the world, even if they've never left Texas. Like Bostonians, Texas is the best ever. And so from football, there's a meeting, it's a 3-tier system. And the first level was super champ. The next one was champ. And the lowest level was regular. Some poor kid would go, "You regular?" "Yeah, I'm regular." And on the other end of it, some kid was going, "You super?" "Yeah, I'm super." It used to drive me nuts. The worst line I used to hear was, "I just souped up." I'd be like, "Oh, all you could do is rally. You can't even, you don't know what an approach that is." But you couldn't play up. You had to play your age group. And then, with tennis parents, my kid lost in the 16s. I should have had him play in the 18s, and I'm kind of just hitting my hand against my head. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. He lost in the 16s. You just should have signed him up for the 18s. Because in Florida, forever, you could just play whatever you wanted. But in Texas, like say in France, young kids would have to get permission to play up. I think you have to have some results before you play up. But they dropped that. Now isn't it nationwide because I know in Florida it was rookie, regular, super series, designated, and sectional. But I think now it's throughout the country. It's all 1 through 7, right?
Levels, yes. So when that was right around COVID for Texas, I don't know about the rest of the country, but right around COVID, and I think it has a lot to do with with UTR. That was a time where UTR just came around and they were having tournament. There was like options to play as much as you wanted, and so many people were going towards that. Instead of waiting for that one tournament a month, you could just go play. And so in Texas, at least, it felt like that was their answer. Okay, we're going to have levels. And so level 6, level 7, you can, they have almost as many as you can have. You have a little bit, there's a territory a little bit, maybe a radius of 50, 60 miles where if there's a level 6, you're not going to have another one the same weekend. But so a level 6 in Texas, you'll have one probably every week, one in Austin, one in Dallas, one in maybe two in Dallas, like one in Dallas, one in Fort Worth, one in Houston, one in the by the border, one in San Antonio. So many. And so sometimes it makes things a little tough because we're not very far from Austin. So you can have that makes the tournament, it can make the tournament a little bit smaller, especially for some division like the 10 and under. So every time you have a level 6, you have to have a 10 and under tournament. And so now you have 3 players registered there, 2 registered there, and both tournaments are canceled. Whether if it was just in one place, you would have all 5.
Talk about the geography of Texas, but before we do that, traces of the old. Is there still any carryover from the 3, the super champ, regular is just obliterated? That doesn't exist at all anymore.
It doesn't. So for a little bit at the beginning, you could hear, yeah, I used to be a super, but now that's it.
I one time had a mom call a meeting, and I met with her, and she said, I want to know, now that my daughter is super champ, how are you going to coach her? I said, excuse me, I got to find a pencil and paper. And she said, why do you need to find a pencil and paper? I said, because that's a top 10. That's top 10 dumbest questions I've ever been asked. You know, it's like, come on, you just ask me that. But the geography, the comedians used to say, well, I think it works this way. If you were to flip Texas up on its end, so you go way down to, what's it, Brownsville?
Brownsville.
Brownsville would be in Canada. I mean, that's how big Canada is. The comedians used to say that the drug was Quaaludes. They'd say, I need 2 Quaaludes to drive across Texas because it's so big. But I think years ago in Texas, one thing was that all the major cities, and El Paso wasn't part of the Texas Tennis Association, but you had Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. What am I forgetting? Those are
those are the big ones.
4 big cities, but they're all about. It's not like they're all next door.
No.
And they had tournaments years ago where the top 16 would get in, and you would be guaranteed 4 matches. I mean, that was a good tournament. It was a big deal to be in the top 16 to be able to play those. But I do think that it's really gone away with the national tournaments. How does that tie in with someone like yourself running 1 through 7, the levels within the Texas section? So a national tournament. Years ago, there wasn't anything but hard courts, clay courts, and indoors. There was only 3 nationals. And kids, the point is that kids stayed closer to home. And actually through that, people spent less money. They played more matches. And actually, we developed more players. So what's a tie-in? So you work for the high school district, but you also work with the USTA or work with Texas Tennis Association. Pretty close. Have to work closely with them.
Yes, with USTA. Yes, it's mostly the tournament. So when I'm done, it's in the evening. The tournaments are usually small, or sometime in the morning, I'll do my draws for the weekend, and then we have level 7. We get 40 to 50 players. It goes pretty quick. You small division, small draws. In Texas, they only do round robins for those tournaments for level 6 and 7.
Well, because Texas is, what is it? The population is, how does it go? 99% the land mass. I mean, there's miles and miles of open space. I believe at one time a gentleman had a ranch in West Texas that was bigger than Connecticut. It is huge.
King Ranch, maybe.
I just remember that from years ago, hearing that. We were taking a course, Texas government. But with, so people don't travel, like say these level 6s and 7s. So is Houston better than Dallas? Or is it just kind of depend? Can you tell what tennis sections are stronger within the different parts of Texas?
I mean, you can see there are cities that produce more players for sure. I mean, I would say Austin does pretty well for its size. Dallas does very well. Houston does pretty good, but Houston's I think is the biggest city, so
yeah,
they could do better in my opinion. San Antonio is okay, but every once in a while they produce some like one really good one.
Yeah.
But after 6 and 7, the players, once they go to 5, 4, 3s, I mean, they all travel, so you do see the same players.
Actually, Ben Ball was the executive director of the Texas Tennis Association when I ran this program at Tyler Junior College. Ben and several of the staff members from the TTA, Texas Tennis Association, would come up to Tyler and teach us how to run tournaments. It's not my favorite thing to do. I've been, as I said earlier, I've been a tournament director. The late Bobby Curtis, I was in charge of a facility that had 4 Super Series, and he called up and he wanted to have less tournaments. And I said, but people didn't want to let go of their tournament because it's a moneymaker. I remember telling Bobby, he just asked me if I would drop one. I said, I'll drop all 4. I mean, my thought is that coaches should coach. And I think a lot of times what coaches will do is, find, a way to I'll make more money running a tournament and be in the air conditioning. And I know it's a hassle to run a tournament, but I do think a lot of coaches, a lot of facilities, and I know, I could just name some facilities in Florida. There, one small country club has 14 tournaments because they end up having so many clay courts and 14 tournaments. In other parts of the world, I think a lot of facilities say, well, we want to showcase our facility. If they have the luxury of having indoor and out, they're going to have one outdoor tournament. They're going to have one indoor tournament, and they're going to make it very prestigious. I know I used to host a lot of Japanese players, and it was a big deal for the trophy ceremony. And there's many times where I would take players to a tournament, and they'd say, "Hey, can you come back next week to pick up the trophy?" And I go, "Well, they're flying out on Monday. I don't think they're going to come back from Tokyo for their tournament for their trophy." You said, which is so funny. I said, with all the problems presented to a tournament director like yourself, you could write a book. And your comment was, "I don't think anybody would want to read the book." Tell us some of the problems of running tournaments.
That's something I had to prepare a little bit. I was trying to go through the email inbox that we have for Blossom tournaments, and it was just, I mean, it's saturated with so many different emails that it was so hard to find I mean, specific situations that I was looking for. But I made a list of like pre-tournament that we get, or during tournament, or in post-tournament. Before the tournament, I mean, as soon as we do the player selection, I usually get a couple of emails about, I missed the deadline, can I still register? And so I'll get, with that comes a whole list of excuse. But the first line on the tournament page from the USTA is, in Texas, is, we do not accept late registration. So that makes things pretty simple. But they made the change from one year to another. So for 10 years they were taking late registration, and then when they said, okay, we're cracking the whip, I mean, people were just like, what? But so yeah, we get that. We run a lot of new player, like entry level tournaments. So people are asking, where can they find the draw? I mean, I get a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but can you keep me away from this player? I've played him before. I mean, my answer is usually, unfortunately, and then in parentheses I'll put, or fortunately, we don't take requests as far as who you're going to play in the tournament. And then once we run a couple of level 5 and one level 4 each year in Texas, those have doubles. And so that's a lot of work, the doubles pairing. The pairing is not easy. People have trouble reaching out to other player. We're not allowed to share contact information. And so, we try to pair them. Sometimes there's an option to pair them randomly, and then you pair them, and then they're like, actually, could you pair me with someone else? And it's like, so that's a lot of the communication we get before the tournament starts.
Draws at the major level, obviously, they're open to the public. obviously when a tournament director is making it off a computer, I know many parents think that, the person just pushes a button, they look at the draw, they don't like it, they push another button. What are your comments on that?
No, I mean now there's a USTA developed like this software called Serve Tennis, which is, I mean, it makes things easier. I don't really know what they used before, because like I said, I started right around COVID, and that was already out. So I mean, we pretty much, we press a button that gives us the ranking of the players, and then they're seated, and then if we're making a draw, let's say in level 5 and 4, there are draws of 16 players. So he'll put a seed for the 4 players, the 4 top. We do have some avoidance. So they'll do, depending on the level, but for example, at 5, they'll do avoidance by 4-digit zip code. So the last 4, they'll try as much as possible to avoid people from playing each other. But a lot of time in a city like San Antonio, I mean, there's so many zip code. It's not because your last 4 are different that you're not practicing with that person, with that player. But so you add that avoidance, and then the 4 seed, and then you press make draw, 16-player compass draw, and that's it. It's like the draws are made.
To digress, one side note is our episode, Arnaud, is 210. That's your area code.
Yeah, that's
San Antonio area code. Here's the question I have: the alphabet soup of tennis. You've got the USTA, the WTN now, the UTR. I think this is wrong. Of course, it's an opinion, but the people can see who's entered the tournament. I hear parents say it all the time. I go, well, if they're threatened to lose to players that are below them, so less tennis is played. Well, there's, no one's. My son's an 8, although they whisper that they don't want anybody to know that they're an 8. They want to think they're a 10. And while there's nobody in the tournament that's high enough, Battle of Boco is a chapter of my life. A nice service that's provided tournament every weekend. On the draw sheet, the UTR is right next to the kid's name on the draw sheet. But what are your thoughts on parents and players, coaches being able to look who's entered the tournament, and they say, well, I don't want to play that because no one's entered?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about it. I mean, because I have kids and I have players that play in the tournament, and I mean, I do like to know, if you're gonna travel pretty far, to just make sure that there are good players in a sense that are enter.
There's 2 sides to every story.
Yeah. But at the same time, to know now with the power ranking, I mean, it's like it is a problem. And
what do you mean by power ranking?
Well, the UTR, I mean, I just call it like a power ranking, or WTN. No.
Okay.
But yeah, it makes it tough. And we do. I mean, I get emails of parents saying like, oh, this is the 3rd time that my son gets, because the people that are the parents of players that are like, when the player is supposed to play a higher player and that person withdraw, and they came from far, and now they don't get those matches, and so they ask us, I mean, are you going to penalize them? And USTA Texas had done at one point, they had a rule where if you had so many withdraw, you were penalized. I think it was maybe with some USTA points. And then they were told, I think, by nationals that they had to stop, as far as like, let's say a kid's injured, and now all of a sudden they feel like they have to play through their injury. So there was some kind of legal problem behind it. So now there's no penalty for withdrawing.
That is a good point, that you certainly want to be challenged, but also your match count. At the end of the day, how many tournaments have you played, or how many matches have you played for the year? And then also another formula is how much money have your parents spent for each match? I heard Andy Brandy, the late Andy Brandy, who years ago I worked for. I don't know where he heard this, but it's a great formula. If you could play 25% up, 25% down, and then 50% in the middle. Jimmy Connors, who arguably is from the best age group ever in American tennis. He was born in 1952, the people from his age group. Top 10 player after top 10 player. he said, play where the pressure is, play your age group. Granted, there's some players. I mean, if you're going to play up, you have to me, you should be doing phenomenally well at playing. But I remember, so coming back to Connors, I heard him say one time, he was speaking in New York at the teachers conference, and he said, "Don't play your age group. If you're dominating your age group, still play your age group. Just play different game styles, play different patterns, play different ways." But I can remember Tracy Austin. I mean, out of nowhere, she's already top 10 in the world. She won the U.S. Open at 16s and went back to play challenge matches to be on the Whiteman Junior Cup team, which is similar to like Junior Fed Cup. So can you imagine someone playing pro tennis and stepping back and go, okay, I'm going to play challenge matches to be on the junior team? You think, well, if someone's doing that scenario, I've got nothing to win and everything to lose. But forget that. The ball's the ball, the court's the court. It's just play matches. We're always talking to kids about not being tennis snobs, especially siblings, an older brother, younger brother, but just play and practice with everybody. You've been here a long time, this visit, where I love the drill. You and I were just looking out these beautiful 4 clay courts. It's like looking at people playing in the forest. And they look so much better because Ilya as well was with us. But we were having the kids play 100% with their feet. They could only hit 50, 60%. Then the first go is no one hits a winner. And then finally say, okay, now you can hit a winner, but you draw a line in the clay where it's 10.5 feet from the net. You can only win on a volley or an overhead. And all of a sudden it looks like different tennis. What about scoring with tournaments? Is that up to you as the tournament director? I mean, is it, where does a 10-point tiebreaker come in? Where does no ad? Where's a rain delay coming in where you start at 2-all? Changing the format from consolation, or the championship round matches are different than consolation. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I mean, it's regulated by the section. So when they, for a level 7, there's a couple of different format that are available for a 6, other format, and so on. And so, but so they give you a couple of options and you pick from them, but everybody kind of chooses the same, and so, I mean, the no ad is definitely helps. The no ad, as far as like running a tournament, it helps as far as you can get a pretty accurate average match time, about 80 to 85 minutes is going to be an average match time. Although there is some that are like sometimes even 3 hours. You're like, how do you play 3 hours with no ad? The third set tiebreaker also is, I mean, same, helps a lot with that. So we have a little bit of flexibility now where we make sometimes a lot of those decisions is when we get bad weather. So when we get bad weather, that's when, but we have to get approval for the section before to change the format. But that's probably one of the hardest thing to do during the tournament, that to deal with the bad weather and communicate it.
So you have to actually talk to an official. You yourself, just if there's inclement weather, you can't just make a decision like, well, this is what we have to do to get this tournament completed.
Well, I give my 2 cents. This is, I think every time I've asked, okay, can we, now it's going to be too late to keep playing sets to 6. Can we switch to two sets to 4? And I don't think there's ever been a time where they say, no, you can't do that right now. So they always, they might be like, oh, that's not an approved format. But I mean, now I know what's approved, what's not for each level. But
I'm at the age where everything reminds me of something. I was a director of a facility, and I was traveling and doing an education workshop and come back. And so I come back and find out that they can't cancel consolation. I said, no, you don't cancel consolation. I know it is difficult to get the tournament done, but it's all about participation, and if people could just understand match count. Before we got on, I was air here. I was exchanging text messages with Chuck Creasy. He wants to talk to me about the game. I mean, who are the guardians of the game and what's going on. Chuck certainly doesn't want tennis scoring to be abbreviated, But for a 15-year period in college tennis, they had no ad. 15 or so years, they had no ad. And no one complained because you could play as many matches as you wanted. So, but now to have a limit of 25 days where you can play, and some people play double headers, but scoring is always interesting. In talking to Chuck, I heard this where the first set should be a 10-point tiebreaker, and then that way you have a true third set. It's just hey, you're really helping kids with fitness. And then fitness doesn't come into it like it would if it was a third set. But yeah, there's so many variables, a lot more variables with a tournament, a lot more variables because you had a deadline, with like say a tennis camp, it's like, okay, we can be flexible here.
Mm-hmm.
But you just like, so-and-so has to play so-and-so, and they've got to move to the right, the championship side, or move to the left. Yeah, so I guess I'm certainly a traditionalist when it comes to the longer third set, but more tennis is better.
Yeah, but I mean, with that said, we do have, in the high school tennis still plays. So if you play district, if you play regional, if you play state, you're playing with ad, and you're playing a full third with new ball in the third. So a lot of those kids, sometimes it's like they're 15 years old, and they've played a lot of tennis, and now they're playing high school tennis, and this is the first time that they're playing a full third.
That's great news. I mean, it was bad news is in the U.S. How's it go? The individuals become bigger than the program. Homeschoolers, a public school, if their parents are taxpayers, they could still play high school tennis. It's not that long a season. I think the young kids should play for something bigger than themselves. And, Jimmy Connors, go where the pressure is. And yeah, I mean, in Florida at one point, you had to play at least 4 matches because Bollettieri's and now which is called IMG Saddlebrook, they would have very strong players, and they were even rocking up at one point where they hadn't played one match. I think another thing too about high school tennis is, if we could teach better leadership. I mean, this isn't healthy to say, well, I'm on the high school team, but I don't have to go to practice. I mean, come on. Can you imagine a basketball team? Hey, coach, I'll just see you at the game. I'm not coming to practice. I mean, it's just crazy. How about fees? I've been told that the wild, wild west of the UTR, which at one point, I mean, it was nonprofit. It was just tournaments were going to be ageless and genderless. It was going to be self-rating. That's really changed. And Dave Fish, Dave Howell, took the French system, and he's the one who came up with the UTR, the formula of the math. Mm-hmm. Dave Fish, with his the white paper, as he called it, thought there was just a major problem with competition in the U.S. It was supposed to be self-rated. Certainly some people at the golf tournament would sandbag. Somebody says they're a scratch golfer. All you got to do is watch them hit one ball, and they're not a scratch golfer. If some boy tells you that he's a 12.5 in the UTR, you watch him hit one serve, he's not a 12.5. But that was to make the UTR initially was to have tennis become more accessible, more affordable, and have more backyard tennis. And again, everybody playing with everybody. But the fees. I've been told that the USTA has regulations on what you can charge, and the UTR you can charge as much as you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the USTA, they have a suggestion fee. So if you can go lower than the fee. So if you have some sponsors, you can go lower. You can go higher, but you have to talk to them, and you have to, at least in Texas, and you have to have an explanation of why you need to charge higher. And there are some cities, sometimes it's harder to have access to courts. So that could be something. As far as UTR, I mean, UTR is, we've ran some UTR tournament, and they just, they take money here, they take money there, and it looks like it's privatized. I mean, it looks like it's for money, if you ask me, because you have to have a membership to pay less. For the provider, you have to have a membership to just be able to host the tournament, and then on top of that, there is the transaction fee. There is a fee for this, a fee for that, and so at the end, you don't have much budget to, because to pay for officials. So a lot of those UTR tournaments end up where there are no officials. I mean, it is the wild, wild west. Yeah.
With the UTR, I think it would be great if it were to start, last year's 16s, where it would help will help coaches with recruiting. I would say that overall, I think the UTR is accurate. I think if I was asked what's the biggest positive of the UTR is the tournaments that have money, because obviously you spend so much time in France. The UTR is based off the French system. Is when someone plays at a high level, playing college tennis, but they don't play high enough to pursue a pro career, we lose those kids in the States. There's nothing for them. I mean, we used to have, there was a under 21, doesn't exist anymore. We had 25 and over, but to have people in their early 20s, so they enter the working world, to have them play tennis, like in Europe, the different club levels. There's so many positives to someone staying with tennis where, okay, they can make a little pocket money. It's social. They're playing in front of people. They're making, whether it's, contacts for business, but the UTR money tournaments, I think that could be something that really would help tennis.
Sorry, but I agree with that. I agree, and we've done some UTR money tournament. The problem is because of all the fee that they take, I mean, the registration fees up the roof. In France, you do have money tournaments, but it's $40-$45 to enter the tournament, 50 at the most. With those, the UTR tournament, you're looking at 80, 90. Sometimes it could be 100 unless you have the power subscription. And so.
Well, I think I've been told that the French do a much better job with the money they make from the French Open. The USTA, the funny money, you hear the term $1 billion a year. Anyway, it's a lot of money. That the English were doing this at one time. I understand they stopped doing that. If a kid won a futures tournament and they won, $1,000, the LTA, governing body of British tennis, would throw in another $1,000. They would match whatever they won. My son Connor one time won he won a futures, and I said, "Oh, okay." Got around to, how much did you win? And he won the doubles as well. So I said, "Well, how much did you win for doubles?" He goes, "I wish I didn't ask that. When I told you I won $1,800, it was for both. It was for both." But I think that's where the USTA, they could put money into that, because it is a story of the late bloomer. So many times, a lot of money, the USTA, they cherry pick these kids that are 12, 13, 14 years old. But if they put money into the kids that want to still, in the summers, and that's something, well, that's just, it's crazy how it's changing now. It's another subject with the NIL money. Was it name, image, and likeness? But there'd be more money to the tournaments. I think in the U.S., unlike Europe, it becomes more of a business. I mean, I think every tournament's a business, but the ITFs, my term for that, idiots traveling foolishly, is there's 5 different levels. So if you're playing a level 5 ITF, you can. That's one thing with UTR. Some kid based in the States. He's in Trinidad. He's in Barbados. He's in Guam, wherever it is. He's there to try to get easy points to improve the ITF ranking. But age 19, everybody's playing the same thing. I mean, some kids are going, "Yeah, I want to play the junior slams," and that's way overrated.
In Texas, I think they do actually a pretty good job in the section, offering a lot of matches. So we have level 6 and 7 where they do round robin. So usually you're guaranteed 4 matches.
Yeah, it's good
to play. And then the higher level. So those are the tournaments they have control of. And then 4 and 5, same thing. So they're flighted draws. So they take, if they accept 48 players, they'll take. The top 16 will go in flight 1, the next 16 in flight 2, and then from there they'll do compass draws. So your compass draw, same things. It's 4 singles, 2 each, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday, and then you have doubles in the afternoon. So you're paying, but it's not first round and then maybe consolation. I mean, you're getting, it's worth it. So because of that, we are getting a lot of out of state also coming visiting, because you're getting a lot of tennis.
Southern California at one time was the only section of the 17 where you could bring foreign players in and play in junior tournaments. It really wasn't the best rule in many ways, like say in Florida, where residents only. Your kid is trying to play college tennis, which is international, and then you're looking at a tournament that says, well, it's residents only. You want anybody and everybody to be able to play the tournament. Like our famous tournament that's going on right now for the boys, 16s, 18s, Kalamazoo. Rod Laver won that tournament. I mean, it used to be on red clay. The Orange Bowl was on clay at Flamingo Park. They changed it. Americans weren't winning it, so they put it on hard court at one point. And a lot of the kids, the good players from the northern part of the U.S., I mean, they're not going to do that well when they get off an airplane and go to Miami, and they go from indoor hard to outdoor clay. But with tournaments, can't live with them, can't live without them. I mean, I like to tell people every day is a tournament. How they go about it, and our kids making phone calls. One thing I like about entry fees is the thought where years ago, all you need to do is be able to buy a can of balls and make a phone call. And you'd show up to play someone, and that each person brought a new can of balls, and whoever won would keep the new can of balls. What a simple system. But to play that match on a ladder, you had to defend, play someone below you, so then you had the right to play someone above you. It could be a straight up and down ladder. They had triangular ladders, but those have gone away. How about seeding? As a tournament director, are you in charge of that? How does that work?
I mean, it's pretty simple. It's really just based on the national ranking list, which is, you play tournament, you get points with your wins, and so every players have a ranking, and so there are a couple of different lists. The main ones are the combined ranking that includes singles and doubles, and that's what accept you in the tournament. And then after making the draws, but sometimes, I'll get questioned like, oh, why am I number 3 seed? I am 5 UTR, and the number 1 seed is a 3 UTR. And it's, well, that's UTR. You're playing a USTA tournament, so we're going by USTA points. So that's what determines the seeding. And then after there are rules to make the draws. So depending on how many people are in a draw, you have so many seeds.
My son Connor was once ranked number 2 in the USTA 18s. But say, for example, going to Kalamazoo, he wasn't seeded second because they took it in consideration. And my son, outside of Florida, where we have the Orange Bowl and the Eddie Herr, he'd only played one ITF. He played a level 5 in El Paso and won it. And it was just circumstantial that he played there. But, he didn't have ITF points. And then some people, very, very seldom does someone in juniors have an ATP point before. That's the true teenage sensation. But I tell parents all the time, like say if someone in our world, we tell them take some time off to work on your game, because their ranking, whether it's ranking or rating, is going to go down. Ranking for sure. Ranking will go down, correct, faster. Mm-hmm. The USTA ranking will go down faster than a UTR rating. But in junior tennis, don't worry about seeding. Just worry about match count. Worry about skill acquisition.
It's not. To me, the seeding is not that accurate. There is some accuracy to it, but so much of it is based on how far are you traveling and how many tournaments are you playing. Like especially like in a state like Texas, you'll have some players are willing to go to, I don't know, Lubbock or Brownsville because there are not that many entry, and they're gonna get a lot of points.
Unless it's changed, the Orange Bowl and the Eddie Herr 12s and 14s were a USTA tournament. The 16s and 18s were ITF. And when I would go to, say, the Orange Bowl, Eddie Herr with a 12-year-old, say, let's go to the draw sheet and go, this basically is an American tournament. There's not that many people from all over the world. It's way overrated. They see the flags everywhere. Um, with, um, but yeah, all the hype with, I would think with the seating. Well, how, and I think back with the UTR or excuse me, the Eddie Hero Orange Bowl. How can you really seed 12-year-olds, from around the world? But that was something with UTR. Well, that will help out, and I think at that level, it just creates way too much stress. That's all they're focused on is their UTR. What about doubles only tournaments? Is Texas? I know Florida. Bobby Curtis did that at one point, where just one weekend a month, you could only play doubles, and he fought for doubles. Great guy, but it didn't work because what happened is people just took that weekend off. Has Texas ever dabbled in that, where it's doubles only?
We did. I don't think it wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago. We did a level. So they're limited. Each section is limited in how many level 5 and 4 they can have. So now with level 6 and 7, they have more margin. We did a level 6 doubles only tournament, and it wasn't the participation was pretty good. It was pretty good. We're happy with it. That's something that we're pushing as far as the format. In the 6 and 7 where they have control. Now that the offering is so much bigger, we're telling them like, oh, I'm trying to vouch for just offer more format. One tournament can be round robin, one tournament can be compass draws, one tournament can be doubles only, one tournament can be dominant duos, which is a team of 2 players and they each play a single and then they play a double, and whoever has 2 advance, and it's a multi-chance tournament like a compass draws, because they do those team format in a lot of the national tournament, 1, 2, 3, and the kids have a blast. But for the entry-level player, there's not that many options as far as like team tournament. There's junior team tennis, which is great, but there is a gap between junior team tennis, which is a lot of time like beginner, like entry-level competitor, and then level 5, level 4. So that's something that I'm trying to, give ideas. But when you talk to the USTA Texas section, they can't just say, well, yeah, we're going to do it, because there is a whole system of points tied into it. So they have to like get it approved or national, and yeah, I mean it can get.
And over the years, there's been a disconnect at times between national and sectional. But I think it's better now.
Maybe, yeah, I'm not too familiar with that, but maybe.
I like the idea. They used to do this in Sweden, where the odd number months, like say January is a 1, February is a 2, you go to March. So January and March, the age groups would be 11 and under, 13 and under, 15 and under. And the even number months would be 12 and under, 14 and under. In bigger sports like soccer, it's like, who's the best player for that year, the birth year, like 2007, 2008. With tennis is a smaller sport. Just with rules, let's talk about that a little bit. I know in other countries, they make it mandatory. Can't be your cousin, but they have an umbrella. They have the umpire's chair with the big umbrella, and they have a junior that you have to call. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 matches. I've seen this many, many places. And they serve as the arbitrator. So they have to announce the score, which is a very good thing. They have to have presence. They have to project. And then also there's a conflict. So they have to, overrule. And that cuts the cost. But with tournament referees, as a tournament director, is there, like based on the size of the draw, do you have to have so many referees?
Yes, the size, the number of, it's more the number of courts that you're using and the level of the tournament. So the higher the level, I think level 1, it's 1 referee per 4 court. When you get to a level 7, I think the tournament director can be a referee if they want, because there's not much budget for those tournaments. They're usually pretty small. Now level 6, I think it's 1 for 8 to 9, one for 8 to 9 courts. So, but it gets, sometimes 10 and under. I mean, they will make a lot of mistakes, and parents are not always understanding of the mistakes. So a lot of time when you have those player, I mean, it gets expensive. So we try to find court monitors, so not necessarily officials. So people, but they can't make overall, but they will assist with the scoring format or answer the question. Make sure that they'll say the score out loud.
What about the competency of the overall of the officials? I mean, because many times, well, let me say this first. So for almost 10 years, if not 10 years, not so exciting, but I was the coordinator. I was running the program, and we would have our coaches become certified umpires, licensed umpires. You know, just every feather that they could get in their cap. We at one point I think we had 7 certifications. We had USPTA, PTR. You had to be certified to be an NTRP rater. Back in the day, everybody had to do CPR. You had to be certified as a stringer, certified for CompuTennis. But the umpire, you would just read the rule book. Years later, of all people, Vic Braden made videos for the USTA on the importance of what an umpire has to do when they're calling lines and such. But with that, I told junior players that they should have a rule book. The people should know the rules. I mean, is that something that comes up quite often?
Yes.
Like the knotty pines, the interpretation of the rules.
Yes, I mean the competency of the ref definitely, especially because there's been a big, since UTRs came around and USTA upped their offering, there's just been a whole lot more tournaments offering, and so harder to find officials. Since now, instead of having, I don't know, 2 tournaments in Texas at the same time, now you have 6 or 7. So a lot of new official out there, and so there is some growing pain, whether it's some rules that they don't know, and then there is also the fact that some people are not that interested in being a referee anymore because of sometimes the parents,
the abuse.
Yeah, the parents or the players, but mostly the parents. Yeah,
well, I'll get that to get into. That was, I thought the be the most interesting part of the book, having been a tournament director. Billy and Leon Lip, they, for the most part, ran this umpire school that we would have for a weekend, a long weekend. They did a great job, but it's like, okay, this is not that exciting to just keep going over the rules. I remember they said that when McEnroe, they both were around pro tennis. That's what they did for a living. But McEnroe, when they would even change a ball kit, he knew everything that was going on. He was just aware of, did they change the lines person, or did he want the lines person changed? I remember my son, Mikhail, this was in Tampa. So when I did it 10 years in a row, I was at this college in Tyler, Texas. So in Tampa, I was asked, did it for several years, to send players where they were training umpires. So we would send some kids over. And I remember my son, Mikhail, was really young, and he was playing points in front of these umpires that were being trained. And like the next weekend, he's playing a tournament, and he goes, "Hey, 2 of those people they're being trained, they were umpires this weekend, so they have to start somewhere. They start in the level 7s, right?"
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
But I think that's interesting because usually the lower the level, the greater the problems, right?
It's just different problems.
Problems.
Yeah, it's different problems, but because you get problem with the level 7, but you also get problem at the higher level. The younger players is where you get more problems overall, whether it's level 1 or level 7, just because the parents are just so new to it.
Well, don't you have some referees too that they're looking for a cup of coffee and they're roaming referees, but they hear some screaming and they start walking the other way?
Yes,
because they want to avoid the conflict.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and that's not good, because usually it's like it ends up just growing bigger. It's like it's better to just attend it.
Well, I know at the national tournaments, I don't know if they're still doing this for years and years, all the players would meet. They'd have to get a large, like say a bleacher. All the players meet in the stadium, and they would just be told, this is how the tournament is going to be fair. This is how the tournament's going to be run. This is how it's going to be officiated. But the type of tournament you run pretty much are still like kind of drop in. They're local, and they show up when they have to play their match.
Correct. But we actually do some of those meetings a little bit. I think it's mostly because we run also high school tournament, and we have those meetings at the high school tournament. Since, everybody's there at the same time, everybody warm up, they get there with the school bus. And so the official talk to them, and with UIL, which is the governing body for tournaments in Texas, school tournaments, there's no warning. So it's usually that's the time where they tell them, this is your warning. Any offense is a point penalty from then on. And so because we're used to that, when we have, and like I said, some of those level 7s or small tournament, almost everybody is playing at the same time. We will have a meeting. And so I think it's good to have, they get to have the official talk to them already. If they have questions, they feel like they can approach him. So we try to make it a positive experience for the player entering the competition, not keep them too nervous. The staff at the desk were really like, we get to know the kids by the name. Really try. If you make the environment of the tournament, we feel like friendly, well, not only people will come back, but you just have less trouble throughout the tournament. So running on time is a big thing, because people just get, if you're like 15, 30 minutes early, people are already antsy, and it's like, when am I going on? When am I going on? And so they're already in a bad mood, and then things happen, and then it's just not a great even for the staff, and then for the people playing.
So we'll get into anxiety. Your daughter Morgan is playing tennis as their first sport. Matisse plays tennis, but soccer is his first sport.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're at soccer tournaments. Are the parents the same? Are they different? I mean, what are your observations? How about the officiating?
I mean, it is different, because in soccer, you can yell from the sideline. So that's a big difference. So I want to say there is a little bit more of referee abuse in soccer, for sure. I mean, I personally like going to watch him play, because when I go watch Morgan play at her tournament, since I run tournament, I know everybody pretty much that plays tournament, and so it turns I'm still working, so I'm saying hi, and I like talking to people, so I just end up, so it's my wife that's like, oh, never talking to me. And so but
always being interrupted. I know I've gone to tournaments to actually Ben Shelton. I was teaching tennis, had my own little place 4 or 5 miles from the USTA, and I made a special trip to go watch Ben Shelton play. Maybe he was 15, 16 at the time, and I was hijacked. I was abducted by a tennis bomb. It just, I came here to watch it, and but more than so here they come, and obviously they want to ask about their kid, which I understand.
Yeah, ambushed. Whether it's even even as a coach,
ambushed.
Even as a coach, you get out of the court, and when you have a big program, and you just see the parents coming out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, Coach Arnaud, and it's like, hey.
Actually, in Tyler, Texas, at one point, there was 4 clubs, and there was one that I wasn't affiliated with. I could walk up and teach at the other 3 clubs. My students were running those clubs. So I show up to this one club, and it was a large facility, and the tournament's going on, and they came running to me. And as soon as I walked in, they came running to me, and they sent me to, they said, you got to help us, you got to help us. Like, oh, okay. And they had me become an arbitrator, because it was 2 parents, 2 fathers, they'd been throwing punches, and I had to go out and be the arbitrator. Famous story, Bud Collins used to tell it all the time. I believe it was Dick Stockton and Harold Solomon. The 2 fathers get into a little pushing match. A few punches were thrown, and when that finally was settled, they couldn't find the kids, but they'd gone swimming together. So yeah, so many different stories with anxiety. What are the complaints of parents?
Complaints, we'll have some complaints about, I wrote some stuff down. Filming, it's not major, but
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
can my kid be filmed?
How do you handle that?
And so, well, I mean, it's something, I've talked to the section about it. If you look online from USTA, you can see some section have some papers. So it's clear and written. Texas, I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we do yet. Last I talked with them, they said you have to have approval from the parents. Now, if you have some parents that know a little bit of law, they'll tell you that, no, they'll say, this is a public place. I can film anyone. So us, usually where we run our tournament, even if Blossom is people will think because it's a school district facility that it's public, but it's not. So we'll just tell them like it's not. I mean, I think it is fair that you should have the approval from the other parent to film their kids. Sometimes, I mean, some parents are going through some stuff where they don't want their kids to be, it could be political, coming from another country, they don't want to be seen. So we've had that before. So I do think it's fair to ask.
Yeah, certainly all sorts of issues could be brought up. For me, when I'm asked that, I think that just do what they do in high school football. It's mandatory. People heard me say this many times. It's mandatory to have the film of your last game on the desk of the opposing coach for the next week, and vice versa. Basically, you study our film, we'll study your film. There's a famous quote with a country-fied accent, Bum Phillips, who's coached the Houston Oilers, and what he said about the late Don Shula, he'll take his, and the way he said it, he'll take his'ns and beat yours'ns. But it basically was, he will take his players and beat your players. And then he's such a good coach, he'll take your players and he'll beat his players. So no, I think it's like, let's get better. Let's get better. I'm a big fan of Ash Barty. I heard on a podcast that her father used to go up to the opposing coach and say, "It's great you're playing my daughter today. Here are her weaknesses." And it was no head game. It was just saying, you'd be doing her a big favor. Like when she's younger, you'd be doing her a big favor if you hit short and made her come in and then hit right at her. Because she's working on her volleys.
That's great.
That's just, that's kind of like, whoa, that's a shocker because it's just not done that way. I know that some parents, they don't want their kids to play practice sets with other kids because, well, then they won't have any secrets when they get to the tournaments. There is no secret sauce well, let's go back to, you want to say anything else about tournaments?
No, I mean, you're some of the issue, I mean, all the time we get, can I get a ref to my court? I mean, can I get a different ref to my court? And I'm like, I mean, we don't have that many. But, I mean, we've had a few times where we had to escort parents out, I mean, bringing like, oh, he's coaching or, oh, he's making hand signal. And, it's like so subjective. It's like, I mean, we've had parents saying like, oh, every time he scratches left eye right here, that this means this. And I mean, when I hear that, I'm like, I don't think that guy knows much about tennis. Like,
well, you've got to be around it. If you don't use it, you lose it. You've got to live it. So, tell you a quick story. My son, Mikhail, he had a two-handed forehand when he was younger. So he took 6 months off, close to that, and he came back. He played a one-handed forehand. I mean, I would even remember the name, a kid from Belgium, Steven Ariel. So Mikhail wins. He beats the number one player in Florida. So, but he was playing another match where, and he was into it at that time. And then if you're not into it, pretty soon you can be out of it. So he's playing a match. I had no idea what he was doing. So he has a match point, and he felt that he got hooked. So now it goes back to deuce. He wins the next point. Now he has another match point. He leaves the court. I go, where is he going? And he went to get referee. He said he cheated me out of one match point. He's not going to cheat me out of two. I played with a guy, Mark Casio, and like myself, he started playing really late. But he was a 430 miler as a basketball player. He became really good. And we're playing side by side at first round match, not too difficult. And, Casio, This is back when I was a tennis bum living in a van. So Casio, he wins 6-0, 6-0. So he's up like 6-0, 5-0. And the court, you can just see what the score is. You take a water break, you look over how he's doing. And the kid had no really business being in the tournament. So Casio leaves the tournament, or leaves the court. I said to him later, what are you doing? Where'd you go? And he goes, the kid cheated me twice. Or maybe it was 3 times. He goes, he cheated me 2 or 3. He had a number, whatever it was, 2 or 3. He goes, once somebody cheated me 3 times, I refused to play unless there was a referee. The player has that right. I mean, I know some kids are just, oh my word. I mean, the balls are a foot in and they're calling them out. And they're, and they maybe even taught some tricks of the trade where they put their body in front of the ball. That's out. Kids being lobbed. Hey, the coach says, hey, when you're chasing down that lob, just run right to the ball and they can't see the line. Or when if someone cheats you, cheat them right back and then go get a referee because the score is gonna be wherever they come to, where when they come back and they just start discussing the issue with you. But with cheating is rampant, when you say.
Yes. No, I mean, it's like, and not just that. I mean, like you have like parents, some of them have never played tennis and they're trying to get involved and they're making call from some angles where it's just like, how can you have any clue of where the ball landed, and those refs, they go to school, you put a ball next to the line, right? And when you walk around, you see the different angles and, it can look in, it can look out from where you're looking at it. And they're over there, 2 courts down and they're calling the ball on the other alley. That was not out, and it's like, you're looking at them, you're like, I mean, yeah, it's like, you don't know. Like,
yeah,
you don't know. And so, I mean, and they get, the parents, but yeah, I mean, talking about the call, if you walk, I mean, I'm sure you don't have to walk 2 minutes through the courts and you'll hear, are you sure? Are you sure? No way, 100% sure.
Yeah. No, kids actually need to be taught that. I remember watching the late Jimmy Everett, Chris Everett, she could give the stare, but when someone gives you a bad call, you need to not lose your cool. Arthur Ashe used to say that. You can lose the call, but don't lose your cool. Just walk right up, say, are you sure? Show me Mark. And you just put your racket up and say, I'm going to go get a referee. I think it'd be much better for both of us. Don't get, kids get like, they can't believe like I'm playing a cheater. Well, there's a good chance that's going to happen, especially in the early age groups. It's going to happen quite often. How about as a tournament director, you see young kids playing an entry-level tournament, level 7, and they really shouldn't be in the tournament because they really don't know how to play yet. And then you read stats where how many kids, a knockout tournament, they go and they play their first tournament. They had no idea of their level. They lose and then they never play again. So I guess it's an overwhelming stat.
Yes, I mean, I think that stat was even higher before the system of the level, at least in Texas, because you had Challenger and it was so hard to move on. Now level 7, they're pretty small and you do have a pretty big group of players that are beginner. So usually they get one match where they can kind of compete. But yeah, every once in a while, it's less and less. But every once in a while, you'll get a player that, it barely can get his serve in, and it's tough.
So one of your coworkers, Dave Watts, the coach of Our Lady of Lake
University
Division, or NAIA college tennis. He asked me to ask, I know you're soft-spoken, gentle giant, humble. How does it feel to win back-to-back junior tournament director, best in Texas? What award did you win?
It's just the section. They do this vote of different, best facility and best tournament director, best team captain, and so it's a popularity contest, I guess. And we have a big program. I have a high school kid with big threads of messages that probably tells their friend, oh, yeah, and it's unlimited vote, I think, each day. vote for my dad, and then I got 2 kids. That's probably just how I got
Oh,
it.
come on. You're being too humble.
No, but we do have we're lucky to have a very good team at Blossom. We're lucky. And so we do run a lot of tournaments, and so that helps. It's like we have a system. And then the facility I think we do a good job maintaining the facility. And, sometimes you go to some tournament, some city where you have to travel between sites, and that can be tough. Sometimes 40 minutes. I saw one in Dallas last weekend. It was an hour and 15 minutes between two sites. I mean, with two parents, that's tough.
Yeah.
One parent's taking 2 kids, that's tough.
No, at one time, the Houston Coca-Cola boasted to be the largest amateur tournament. And as a rookie coach, my early 20s, I can remember having a kid in the 12s, a kid in the 14s, took 2 kids to the tournament, and they were both like 45 minutes apart. Houston's a big, big place. Craig Tiley's name comes up quite often, very organized guy. He was with us for 7 years. He took a group of kids. We had a passenger van, 15-seater, and he, foreigner in a different country, he parked it. Oh, it's a weekend. He parked it, and someone, what's it called, a wheel lock or whatever. So, and I mean, he's obviously a very gifted, organized, hardworking, talented guy, but he was in Houston where he had no vehicle. He had all these players, but so he had to figure out to get all these parents. And this kid's got to be at this site. The kid's be at this site. And it was a weekend, and he had to. They came. They towed the van away.
That sounds awful.
And it was just like, oh man,
Sounds awful.
it's amazing what stories can go wrong, or what can go wrong in the stories. Again, from Dave Watts, a few suggestions on if it's not worded exactly this way, but if you were the commissioner of USTA tournaments, what would be a suggestion or two that you'd have? What do you think you could be better?
I mean, what I mentioned as far as like the offering, try to vary the offering. I mean, tennis is a lonely sport in a sense. I think trying to play more team format would be great. Whether it's doubles or even just, team, like kind of like JTT almost, but at a higher level, or not at every level, pretty much. Or, dominant duo, that's a pretty simple format. You just need one partner, and then you guys play singles. I know my son, the one he likes soccer. He strives in those formats when he's playing for something bigger than himself, like with his teammate and stuff. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I think if they could travel as a team too, even with the parents, like in a lot of places in Europe. I spent quite a bit of time in Sweden where the parents can go to the matches, but they go on their own. The kids have to go with the team, the squad, the club.
I've done, and so growing up in France, I've done a lot of that, especially, in the summer, you go with the coach. And then after a while, when when you're 16, I remember one of the parent rents an apartment, and there is a couple of tournament circuit in different, in July, there's 3-4 tournaments there. There's 3-4 there. The last 2 weeks of July. And so you just rent your apartment, and then, you take the bus, you take the bike, and you go play your tournaments. And I mean, there's no one, you can do it with a coach, or you have a coach, or you just do it by yourself, and you play.
Let's go back to your degree. Your background playing tennis, what you studied, and that would be part of a program that has 300 plus juniors. And Dave does have the question down here. I told him he should have me ask you, what's it like for you to have met Dave, the greatest human being that's ever walked the face of the earth? But no, talk a little bit about the college team, the juniors, your interest in the development of players that are every day at Blossom.
Yeah, I mean, I find it fulfilling, to see as a coach, see the players and be able to help players. And in Blossom, we're fortunate where it's not like a country club where we have to meet certain numbers. We're really there to try to promote tennis throughout the community. So there's not that pressure, and so we have the college team. They come, they practice, and then some of the coaches or some of the players will be helpers, and so it makes things a little bit easier. Some of the juniors become fan of the college team, so they come and support them during their matches. And then uh, as far as with the program, yeah, I mean, it's you know we have Ryan and Shane, that are two girls that are visiting right now. They were there before I got to Blossom, so at least 5-6 years ago. And it's like, you get to see them growing and stuff. And so, I mean, for me, I'm discovering that I'm still young, so but it's fun. Like, I like that. I really like that to see.
I think it's very unique how the culture that you could develop, educational culture, championship culture. I think it's unfortunate that so much in tennis, I think Brandon Flanagan has been a guest on the podcast, who's a student, and worked student as a player, student as a teacher. Now he has a business, FM Tennis. And right up, you've been to this place that you came to visit. You were at FM, and right up the street, there's 21 clay courts. And it's really interesting. A lot of the municipalities in Florida, like say Boynton Beach, there's one facility, 21 courts. Delray Beach has close to 40. And you can play, this number's probably a little bit low now, but it's not off by much. Say $450 a year for a family, unlimited play on clay. And to say, well, what should happen at these public facilities in Florida is couldn't you have a player development program where they just work once a day? They don't have to homeschool. They don't have to practice twice a day. And then there's a lot more match play on clay. But to create a culture, I think it circles back, just like a lot of very serious players, goal-oriented players, are not playing high school tennis anymore. Now in Texas, it's not what it used to be, but it's still strong, correct? High school tennis.
Yeah, each year, I feel like it gets a little bit weaker each year. But yeah, we still have some strong. I mean, Fiona Crawley, who won NCAA, is from San Antonio. She played high school tennis.
Fiona Crawley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've interviewed her teammate, Sophia Patel, on this podcast. I'd like to watch her play. I mean, she runs like a deer. Great competitor.
Yeah.
Not very big.
No.
Not very big either.
No. But I mean, and I think she, played for something bigger. I think she played doubles every year. It was pretty much grab a timid and get on my back. Let's go.
Yeah. But no, to have all the players connected. I mean, when Dave was here, and I think I've known Dave maybe 10 years now. Mr. Question. Curiosity. It's good. Intellectual curiosity. He brought his number one player here. So now his number one player can go back and, to jumpstart a curriculum, to jumpstart a program. A group of us went to Tennis Memphis. Well, I showed up with an assistant coach, an intern, and like a half dozen juniors. And one of them had won an Orange Bowl title.
That helps.
So it's like, I was like, well, who's going to listen? At that time, I would say for sure, say I was close to 10 years ago, I'd be the oldest person in the room. For a long time, I've been the oldest person in the room. I'm pretty much there every time now. But they said, no, this is the energy that we're going to bring. So we filmed over 100 players, made over 100 videos, skill tested over 100 players just from the get-go. And, bring players in. And I do remember the young player who had won the Orange Bowl. We did it today. He beat a young athlete, very talented kid, 6-love. And I said, well, let's do this now. And I made the kid play without a racket, and he played baseball tennis. So he just caught the ball, threw the ball. If he dropped the ball, he lost the point. If he threw the ball in the net wide or long, he lost the point. So it's the tennis player versus a human ball machine. And at that level, 12 years old, the serve's not so big. And you got to put your money on the person who's not using a racket, because they're going to be more accurate. But no, I think it's interesting to build a junior development program now. That's how academies work. Is like we have to recruit, and then I think at the public facilities, okay, so your facility's not city or county, but it's not, as you said, a tennis club. It's not a country club. But people think they have to. It's almost like I have to go to an academy. I have to go to a big name academy and blossom where you're planted. So, but then have people start a program and stay a program. That's where it takes a while. Even though you've been there now almost 5 years, you said, and Dave's only in his third year with the team. So I could look back and go, well, I was in, Tyler, Texas for 10 years, or I was in Tampa, Florida for 15 years. Another chunk of time. I mean, I didn't get into tennis, so I'm 20. So you think, okay, you're going to be 70 years old. It's only 7 decades. Okay, what have you done with your time? And, it's going to take the second 5 years. So a lot of the players you're working with now, you want to push and have them come to the best players they can be. But their responsibility is pretty big, even though they're young kids and they don't realize it, is that peer teaching, having everybody help one another out, many things that actually tie into the, like Dave getting his teams to be nationally ranked. And so I would say, okay, the early childhood development classes and the tennis team, it's one. A ready position is a ready position.
Absolutely. And that's why it was helpful, to have Killian here. And Killian, NAIA, so he's 28 years old. He's got a teaching degree in France. So, yeah, it's going to help. It's going to help. He's going to be a leader for the team. Some of the team, a lot of the team comes and help during the junior program, bringing coaches, having you. You came a couple of months ago. All this, it's big. I mean, we already saw a lot of changes over the summer. And as the players that are staying get better, it just helps. Because we have a lot of volume, and we probably have I don't know all the players, but the strongest 10 and under in the city. But what's been happening in the past is we put a lot of rackets in kids' hand, and then we start developing some, and then at one point it just there's a couple of academy where it's like you have to have this UTR to get in, and that's their goal. And then
back to the UTR, as said it on a podcast, paid hit. I said I thought that was only for the mafia. Paid hit. And, a woman was here from California, a really nice lady, brought her 2 children. She told me that if someone has a 10 UTR in California, they can charge $70 an hour just to hit. And it's like, whoa, where is our sport going? With Killian, great player, great guy, hard worker. We're in Virginia, up beautiful Wintergreen Resort. He could run from here to New York or from here to Miami. Did run around a few backhands. But with that, he said, which is flattering because I have great respect for what happens within French tennis. He said there's things that he learned here, or he learned more in 2 days than he did in 2 years. I think that's pretty sensationalistic, but thanks for the compliment. But the tennis math, our governing body of tennis, I think I've been in the inside enough to know that Braden math, and it's homework. It's Braden the late Braden be the first one to say there is no Vic Braden method. Newton and Galileo were here a long time before us. Is 19.1 degrees, the math. How wide is the tennis court? How long is the ball on your strings? By the time you feel the hit, where's the ball? With, the racket's got 8 sides. You spin it, you change the grip by 1 bevel, it changes 45 degrees. But that whole language, and that's really the GreatBase. I mean, people need to understand that it's a system of systems. You and I were talking about that today with how we film as a system. How we put a grip sticker on the racket as a system. How we teach peer teaching, or the application of, how we teach, Van Horn's body balance system. Let's end by going with you're a big guy. I could tell from the video today because I've spent a lot of time working with you now, but today was a different day. Is we went through your video, and if you could turn back the clock, why don't we just talk a little about your topspin backhand?
Oh,
What would you want to share with the listeners?
it's funny because I always thought that was my most technically sound shot in a sense, because it just felt pretty compact, and but what you feel like you're doing is not what you're actually doing. That's for sure. That's for sure. And I remember you talking about Killian's backhand, and I was like, oh, I guess I got a better backhand than Killian until I saw mine on video, and I'm like, oh, we're dealing with the same problem.
Well, your racket face is open, your arms away from your body. You're a big guy, a Bradenism. By the time you hit the ball, you have the limbs of a little kid. I mean, your arm is even with your leg. So you can't free fall. You can't let the racket fall.
No, and on top of it, I leave my left hand by my side, so I literally look like a T-Rex, like when I'm hitting the ball.
Well, it's only an educated guess, but with the left hand, not going all the way back to help the body stay sideways for every action and opposite equal reaction. You plus, the alignment of the body. So when your left hand pulls, my guess would be when you were younger, I mean, did you always have a one-hander from day one?
I started with a one-hander. I went to a two for a little bit, and then the coach just said,
go back to
two-handers doesn't work. Let's just go back to one.
But typically what kids do is they use that left hand as a crutch. I think on backhand volleys, I can't tell you how many times I've done this, is a kid wants to have a one-handed backhand volley. And I go, well, you don't have a one-handed backhand volley. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And we get in the video room and we show mom or dad or both parents. Well, let's look at what happens at the impact point. And at the impact point, two hands are on the racket. And then they let go, and then the racket goes down and hits their toes, especially on the backhand side. But yeah, to get the arm on the inside. So there are lines from Braden's book. When the racket face is closed, then and only then can you truly swing inside out. When the racket face is closed, then you can swing using gravity, letting the racket free fall. From World War II, and that was Braden's age, is you're going to be dead in the water. You got to roll it. It's like the Marines coming off the PT boats and running in Normandy, running into gunfire. He would say that your backhand is like a wave, but the human brain, you've done it over and over again. But then again, what happens is that your backhand is being compared to, as Vic would say, to the toads. You're comparing your backhand to the toad on the other side. Of course, he was a very good comedian. He referred to himself as a toad. He would say, we toads, this is how we play. But so your racket actually turns over. Mm-hmm. So if you're late, you're going to miss on the left side of the court. If you're early, you're going to miss on the right side of the court. I think one other interesting point with yourself, having two young kids that play tennis and having taught, as I call it, teaching pro-itis, is that one of the reasons that you'll open that racket face on, say, the forehand volley or the backhand volley, is you're cushioning the ball and you're setting the ball up you're not sticking a volley. You're not driving a volley when you're trying to teach a young kid to rally. But we always talk about Peter Burwash's line, be 2% selfish, work on your own game. So the player, Killian from France, Dave's number one player, said, hypothetically, he says he wants to make his living in tennis, which is great. Well, if you're going to be a sparring partner with a WTA player, you should be able to just stay in that backhand corner and be like a ball machine, just not miss. But so the teaching pro goes out and hits with younger players. They should be able to understand the tennis math and just hit softly with the very good racket alignment, not letting the racket face open and go down. Go ahead.
No, I mean, you said teaching pro-itis, but it's. I think some of it is also related to the French tennis culture too. I mean, over there, in France, there's a lot of pride in trying to have like the best looking drop shot out there. I mean, you look at Benoit Paire, Fabrice Santoro. I mean, it's like doesn't if you can't win, but you got good hands, quote, right? It's like you're someone, or you're going somewhere. It's like you take a lot of pride in that, and so we do like. I mean, over there, try to just play with like this with hands, and so.
No, I think that's true with the French. I've said the artistic side. I was at Patrick Mortigolo's place. Everybody knows I tease and go, "You meet Patrick Montigulu," and he does a lot for tennis. But his father's a billionaire, and it's amazing the story. But he told me that he was a big fan of Richard Williams, you know, and so he obviously ended up spending time with Serena so much that he could pay. He paid Serena to be the coach. It's kind of interesting. I was told it was 1.5 million, but Patrick told me that that I was all about math and tennis is all about art. And he's not wrong, but it's both. Math is science, so tennis is both a combination of communication and knowledge. It's both art and science. But no, I think the French looking good, looking good. It's like Jack Sock. His game doesn't look too good.
Yeah.
And grip and rip, but you can hit the ball any way you want. It's just quantity. But if you could put quantity and quality together, but Benoit Paire, I was at a pro tournament not too long ago, a challenger, and he was there. And there was another player there, and it would say the same thing, is that because of myelin, he's played so much tennis. Myelin means smoothness, speed, and smoothness of motor movement. But there's a young junior I've seen play since he was 12. He's hitting the ball exactly the same, but he looks smoother. That's just because of the reps. Just watching the Olympics and, with the group of young kids that we have here, one, prevention of injury. So say we have 16 players, prevention of injury. But they tell them they have to take some steps backwards, for long-term success. But someone has to have a great work ethic to do that. Helping your daughter with her serve today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's a big checklist. She does all these things well, but no, she will not be able to hit it when the first serve's on top of the baseline and the second serve goes behind the baseline. But why does that happen? Is that when kids are really young, they just want to get the ball in the box. That's how the game's played. But the people that are making rules for tennis teaching, what should really happen in the early age groups, a kid should be able to stand right smack in the middle of the baseline. And wherever they serve, it's good. They don't have to get the ball in the box. Because when you see a little kid trying to serve, it's like saying, well, the kid should have a tricycle, but we're going to give him a 26-wheeler. And they should just have a throwing motion and wherever it goes, because they can still play it. Talking about ruling, I think there should be such with the early age groups where they do have the USTA officials that travel the country, and you would know this, is they observe other officials. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to get to the U.S. Open. Be a referee, they can go to the U.S. Open. Be a referee, they can go from, being the roaming referee at a 10 and under tournament to actually being, maybe even in a chair. One of our students, Steve Ulrich, he went that far where he went all the way to chairing the biggest matches in the world. But yeah, so like go on and on about tennis, but let's wrap it up. Your tennis game. Your daughter, the Elvis Presley too. It's a language. Toss the ball way out in front and snap down. And you can't do that drill with the toss way behind you. Well, we know it's more the motion is going upward, not downward, but the application. But then the driving force. Watching the Olympics. Have you had any time to watch the Olympics the last few days?
A little bit. I mean, we've been on the court for the most part, but
yeah.
A little bit here and there.
Yeah, just 8 hours a day. 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no substitute for no substitute for a good beginning, but also a good beginning that starts at, the sooner the better. But when people have to make changes in their game, I've been talking to the older players that are here. So when they go back to blossom, will this experience be here, this emergence, will it prove to be a life-changing experience? And will they be a role model? Will they know every kid's name? There's 300 kids. And granted, people are busy and they got to take care of their own game. There has to be some selfishness for sure, but will they know every kid's game? And will they say, hey, this, go up to a kid, what's your name? I'm watching you serve. I had the same problem. This is what you need to do. But I think you're at a magical place with the facility, the number of kids that are there. But I think
we're fortunate.
I think you have to just keep chipping away at it. I think that talking about tournaments, if we had form tournaments and we had target tournaments and give out awards for someone. Okay, who's got the best looking ready position? Then you're tricking all the kids. Vandermeer was great at that trickery. Watching the Olympics and seeing the sports that have a judge, like say gymnastics. You think about some kid doing a backflip on a 4-inch balance beam. That's a little bit more of a challenge than coming to the net and hitting a volley. I go on and on, but one up, one back doubles, serve and volley doubles. What do you see at your tournaments?
Yeah, one up, one back, two back,
But
not much serve and volley.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I mean, it's that's how they're taught, and they're playing to win, and they get lobbed, and so it's like that's one up, one back for the most part.
Yeah, I just want to sign off here, but good to talk to you forever. With the different tennis balls, I've had calls in the past where a parent will say, I got your name from so-and-so, and my child is advancing from orange ball to green dot. What type of training do we need? It's the same. What are your thoughts on those tournaments? And then some people are regulated. What do you have to do to get out of green dot or to green dot?
I don't know if it's the same I think it is for every section, but so orange dot, that's where you start, and then you got to play, I think, 10 tournaments. Once you play 10 tournaments, you get to green dot. Unless you're 9 years old, you can go straight into green dot. You can also have a coach, a certified coach that can bump you to green dot without playing those orange dot tournament. And then green dot, you have to win 10 matches. So you need 1,500 points. So 10 matches and 5 tournament. And then you get that, and you can now play outside of it. It's a little bit easier than it was before. The system of dot. I mean, I like having those. I think it's great to have the ball smaller, not smaller, but the ball slower.
Yeah.
In the boys, in the level 7 boys 12 plays with green dot. I feel like even level 1 they could be playing with green dot.
No, we reverse it. We flip it. We have people spend a lot of time hitting with a foam ball.
Because the bounce is so high, those players are so little. It's it's tough. It affects their technique to have.
Yeah, the Russians, the famous Spartak program, 3,000 hours of practice before you play. The American system, okay, we're not gonna learn to play. We're gonna play to learn. You need to do both, but come on, show the kid how to hang onto the racket.
But I think, I'm thinking about it right now, but you play a level 1 green dot, the kid might have to go to the net to put the ball away,
Well, in practice, situational training, force people to go to the net. I have a girl here from Ohio, and her backhand is way open on the. She goes, my coach just tells me forehand. I said, tell your coach it's okay to run around your forehand, but you have to have a backhand. You hit backhands to get a backhand. So I think at Blossom, it's great that you've invited us back. We'd love to go back again with things like tiebreaker test.
Mm-hmm.
You have college players that are trained at the facility. have the tiebreaker club. Who's beating the tiebreaker test club? And tiebreaker test 1, then get to go tiebreaker test 2, which is hitting the ball. You put the line. You put some skip ropes halfway between. It's 18 feet, so 9 feet back. 9 feet past the service line. That all the shots have to go past that. Courtesy feed with. I think having a standing court for technique. Where people, if then also you can monitor the hours. Even like say the backboard club, who puts time on the backboard. But if you had these portable backboards, and kids come in, because the people need to see that. Like, why are these kids hitting the ball off a cone, drop hitting, going up, tracing their swing against the wall? In other sports, you'll see that type of training. A baseball player, you're just hitting off a tee, but then what happens is it starts to steamroll. Kids regulate kids. Billie Jean King, you got to see it to be it. Most people have not seen high-level tennis up close. And if they have, it's on their TV. They go to a tournament. If they say, well, they haven't seen the training of high-level players up close. But one thing that they haven't seen, it's almost extinct. One up, one back doubles. We talk about all these things, but they don't see static balance. It's like movement, and you need movement. But it's like every kid they should have their skip ropes, and they're going to forget their skip ropes. So then Blossom has skip ropes, and you have, they have to gradually do it. But how many people can get to a point where they can skip rope 60 minutes, 15 minutes on, 15 rounds, 3 minutes on, rest for a minute, shadow swing your serve, do some abs from Jack Kramer. But then the older kids need to embrace that. And it's like, okay, this is something we're going to do. And I think one thing that does happen is that like they need to be proud to play at Blossom. Okay, this is where I go. And this is the program. And I do think the parents want to, bop and shop and say, okay, well, maybe I'll go here for hitting lesson. And your weather's nice in San Antonio. I'm sure San Antonio's got all sorts of car trunk pros, right? That they're hustling on the side, and then the parent thinks, well, our son Tommy's hitting with someone who went to there's Trinity or UT San Diego or UT San Antonio. That this stuff just happens. I had a guy call me up from Ann Arbor, and he contacted me not too long ago, and I said, well, this is how it's going. This is how it happens. In Ann Arbor, I mean, I've only been there a couple of times, but this is what's going on in Ann Arbor is that some college kids stay around to finish their degree. Maybe they're engaged as someone who's going to grad school, but they have some time in Ann Arbor. They were maybe never even made the lineup, but they're going to be coaching in Ann Arbor. I'm not picking on Ann Arbor. It could be, you name it. And it's a lot of times the most highly regarded coach in a city like San Antonio will be the best player. I mean, it happens everywhere. And, even in like country clubs, you'll have the director is they're just hitting with somebody who can already play. But they're not really even looking at what goes on the other courts. But I think what you have, and I'll just say it right here, is that you're on your way to build a program.
We're trying.
Yeah, no, it's great. Is that, and it's very, very difficult in America right now to build a program. But and also too is it's not like people have to take out a membership, right?
No, yeah, it's affordable.
Yeah,
affordable. So
what's it cost to play at your place?
So like, I mean, just to get a court, it's $4 per person. So
singles or doubles, $4 per person.
Yes, and you can have the court for 2 hours. There's no membership. There's if you're a senior, it's free. If you're a kid from the program, it's free. If you play in our adult leagues in the evening, which the adult leagues costs $49 to play once a week, organized play, you can also book a court for free.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very affordable.
Yeah.
Very affordable.
Oh, that's fantastic. And the courts are busy. There's no pickleball being played.
No. I mean, they call and ask, but I mean, we just don't have enough tennis court. We just, do you come in the morning? We have ladies league and a couple of lesson and clinic, but ladies league taking the courts, and then as they finish, there is the college team that comes in and do their practice, and then they finish, and then our junior program starts. We take all the courts, and then we finish, and then we have adult leagues, couple of free reservation. So yeah, I mean, it's all the time, 24/7. And now during Christmas, I mean, now the level 1 is in San Antonio, so it's like all year long the courts are always taken. So it's great.
Well, it's great to have you visit Wintergreen. It's great to have you on our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
One thing is tell the juniors that you've been here, now that we've made a video for you, is that you're going to change your strokes faster than they're going to change theirs.
I hope so. I mean, I feel like I have less work than some of them, so that can help.
You have less time too.
Yeah, less time, but also I've been doing it for longer. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
But usually it's just a matter of maturity. Is that the parents or a senior player can change faster, but it's always about getting better. So when people hear the word change, years ago we used to have people flip through tennis magazines when tennis magazine was like a small telephone book. No telephone books anymore with cell phones, but a thick book, a manual, and we won't change your game. We'll work within your game. We'll just make minor adjustments. We'll tweak. We'll build upon what you've already established. But even as small as change requires reps. But anyway, great story. I just love to hear about your story with
Phil.
Yeah,
the roughneck.
Just coming over to the U.S. and being so young, and but no, I've been through that. I have a great family. You're educated, and you're in tennis, and it's you certainly didn't go this way. You went, but you obviously you learned so many life lessons.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't change. At the sometime my parents were like, I don't know what it is doing, but I mean, at the end, they kind of like, you just follow, kind of how it goes, and you take it as it goes. Like having my daughter early, and but just helped me mature, and anyway, it ended up working out. I feel like it.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of pearls to share about tournaments. So I think if you wrote a book on tournament, people would read it. Give me the high five. Thanks, Arnaud.
Coach.
Podcast 210, the area code for San Antonio. I tell you one thing, at San Antonio, I was there working at the Roddick Tennis Academy, and they had like 30 players. And I didn't go, but I'm not sure if it was game 7, but it was San Antonio Spurs, they won. So I told the academy, I said, I'll tell you what, if they win, I do know that I found a TV to watch NHL hockey when the NBA game was on. But I said, I'll tell you what, if they win, I'll take everybody out for ice cream. But I living in Texas, I've always enjoyed going to San Antonio. Anyway, adios, amigos. Thanks. Arnaud, thanks, listeners. Thank Yvonne for putting this all together.